podcast listener missed about 5 seconds of the programme. It is 4020 live. No Mark this week. I'm not actually sure where he is, but Scoey's on his way. People say this is a shambles, but I don't agree. Omni-shambles. Like everything else. Phil's here. Look, it's Rod Studd.
Hi.
In the finest shirt
Hi
collection Rugby League has
Hi
to
there.
offer.
Well, that's why I'm wearing the jumper today. Cause I thought
It's up your jumper time.
yeah. It's Rod Studd says. I mean, it is.
Hi.
Dave says depleted squad. No, Scoey will be here in a bit. Don't panic.
Now he's got real work.
I know.
He can't be relied upon to be here on time.
I can't remember what that is, to be honest. Get in touch at 4020 Live on Twitter. No one ever tweets us. YouTube, Facebook. Well, we're busy during the show. I've not brought my laptop today, so everything's going on. Everyone wants to talk about many and various things, mainly the made-up crowd in Toronto.
Why is it made up?
Because it's full of free tickets and stuff. Because no one's ever done that before. The chairman of Bradford said some crap in the papers again. I think we should just ignore him.
Mm-hmm.
Liverpool are coming, but they're not really.
Right.
I've got a revelation.
Well, we're going there, aren't we?
Yeah.
Oh well,
For a magic
well,
weekend.
some people are. What else has gone on this weekend?
It was a third fixture of Easter.
Leeds won again, so Leeds are out of crisis now.
Well, Leeds not so much in crisis.
Wakefield lost. Wigan won in the game of the season against Castleford.
Easter's an interesting time. We sort of extend it to 3 games. Only one team was undefeated, which I think tells everything about where they are at the moment and how far ahead of people they are, not least with the quality of the juniors that they've got. 2 teams lost all 3 games. Admittedly, London lost one extremely narrowly, and so did Hull KR, but this would be the time of the season where you'd worry, I think, if you lost all 3 of your Easter games. I don't know what Mr. Studd's take is on the current league table after the Easter period.
I think my take is that St Helens are probably the best team in the competition.
How do you work that out?
Look, I think,
You'll be telling me next that Toronto are the best team in the championship.
Look, I mean, St Helens are clearly much the best, aren't they? And Warrington aren't far behind. I know they got tonked when they played at St Helens, but I don't think over a season that Warrington will be far behind St Helens. And then you could probably put another sort of 6, 7 or 8 teams in a heap, of which 3 of them will reach the playoffs and think that they've had a good season, and some of them won't and think they had a poor season, but there won't be much in it, and it'll probably be a bit of luck here and there that decides that. And then I think you'll find London will finish bottom. They could get. There's a possibility. I'd be worried if I was London. They could get tailed off quite quick now, because they've had that. Not a flying start. They had a good start, didn't they, when they won 3 games, obviously, and now they're hitting the wall. And I know they've lost a couple of games narrowly, but they're getting beat every week now. And once that starts to become a habit, it's very difficult to get out of, unless they can find somebody that happens to be worse than them, over the season.
Is this your
Can
phrase?
they find someone worse?
Regression to
Regression
the
to the mean. Regression to the mean, and
Do
they're basically not as good as the other teams, are they? I mean, I'm not giving them any secrets here. Can they find someone worse than them over another? How many games it is.
If you were
16
David
games.
Hughes, would you be prepared to recruit now? Because I think they made a decision at the start of the season that they wouldn't spend
see, I mean, if they
want to
get
are they
better
now
results,
in a position where they look at the likes of Hull KR,
right,
they look at possibly Leeds, maybe even Wigan, and say, because they've got Leeds to play at Magic Weekend, that could be and they've got Wigan this Thursday.
Relegation 4-pointer.
Let's have it right. Leeds spend big money on big players with big salaries, and for Leeds to finish bottom with the playing personnel they've got would be nothing. I mean, it'd be extraordinary, but B, it'd be an absolute scandal, wouldn't it? And there'd be questions being asked. I mean, for Leeds to finish bottom with that team, I think would be something of the most extraordinary thing we've seen in rugby league for years, since the Leicester Vikings. And could they finish above OKR? London, that is. Maybe. Could they finish above Huddersfield? They're already 4 behind them. Could they finish above Salford? I'm now listing teams that are not spending big bucks and have lower wage bills. Could they finish above Salford? Well, Salford have already got 12 and a positive points difference. So,
is it getting?
So what I'm saying is, if you were David Hughes, how much would you have to spend to make a difference? Is the first.
Well,
question.
who would you spend it on? Is the first question. Because there's very few out there.
Say you could just say for the sake of talking, you could identify 3 players you
Well,
thought would make a difference.
The rumours are that Ryan Atkins is
Right,
about
so you
to
can
leave.
identify
So
Atkins.
let's say
I
you
don't know what
couldn't make
Atkins
him
is
an
on,
offer.
I'd be very surprised if Ryan Atkins wasn't on a salary that was in excess of £100,000.
But
Right.
if you got that gap in your salary cap,
Yeah,
and you're David
Right.
Hughes, would you now mandate his men to go
Right,
out
so
and buy
Warrington
the likes
released
of
the
him?
player because they don't want a player, and Atkins says, "Well, if you can match my salary, I'll come and play for you."
Yep.
Right, so you've got to pay him whatever he's going to get paid for May, June, July, August, September, 5 months, say half a year's salary.
Yep.
But even if you could find 3 Ryan Atkins and you said, right, okay, if we spend £250,000, it might make a difference. You're gambling £250,000. You got to.
But if you stay in Super League,
Yeah, but it's all percentages.
you're getting £2 million next year for
Right.
being in Super League.
Okay.
Whereas if you're in the Championship, you
Yeah.
might only get
Yeah, but there's no
£500,000.
There's no certainty, Phil, is there? Even
No.
if you spend £250,000, there's no
Absolutely
certainty
not.
you're going to get the results. So you might do £250,000 and get exactly the same results that if you hadn't done the £250,000 and you get relegated anyway.
But
So
this is sport,
it is sport.
and people gamble. Owners gamble.
Mr. Hughes has spent
Gamble
a lot of money
responsibly.
already, hasn't he? He's spent a lot of money, over the years, over the peaks. He's spent.
Oh,
I
he
don't know
spent
how many
20 million,
millions,
hasn't he? Over.
So it's
20
hard.
years.
You've got to be. You've got to be able to identify the right players that you think will make a difference, and you've got to be prepared to effectively gamble a lot of money. I mean, it might make a difference, but then would Hull KR spend to get out of trouble? I think
Well,
they're all lucky that it's not 2 up, 2 down.
And that's the interesting thing about Hull KR being linked with Robert Louis for next season.
Right.
Because next season is fine, but you got to know what division that you're going to be playing in.
You know when players leave clubs when they've got a visa and they have to go through a visa application again?
Yeah.
Should players, when they leave one club and go to another club, have to go through some kind of test to see whether they are a fit and proper person to play?
What? Who are you
Well,
referring?
just saying. Ben Barber's not allowed to play, but if a player left a club,
Well, that's not been tested yet, has it?
well,
It's not
not
actually been
yet.
tested.
Maybe
by-
London. Maybe
not
go
actually
on,
been tested
David.
yet.
Go on, pull the.
Well, yeah,
pull
it's
the
not
plug.
been tested. The proof of the pudding would be in the eating. If a club wanted to sign the player and said we can sign this player and he wants to play for us, and then it's down to the relevant authority to decide whether they want that player to be available to play in the Super League. And I think it was last time I was on. Actually, we were discussing that. There's a lot of players played Super League with all manner of criminal convictions, isn't there?
Absolutely.
And they've still been allowed to play in the competition. So I don't know. It's a very, very complex issue. That.
Well, the hypocrisy of the Rugby Football League on that will be very interesting as well. But,
So you're advocating that London should sign Ben Barber?
they should sign Ben Barber. There you go. And Easy for Lau, everyone just sign him. just sign everyone. Just spend all your money. Apologies to the people on YouTube for the audio issues, but now I've unplugged all the equipment. It's working fine. So
You just can't hear us.
You know what's happened is because. Not to let light into the magic, but there used to be more stuff in the studio.
They did.
And now there's less stuff in the studio.
It's uncluttered.
When I say studio, office,
It's uncluttered.
and now it's you can hear the echoes a lot more.
Oh, right.
But I'm just blaming that for everything. People are moaning about the Magic Weekend. They're upset
What
about
are they
that.
moaning about?
They're moaning that apparently no one's bought tickets. But how do we know this? We don't know. It's people on the internet. If you're upset about people not buying tickets for the Magic Weekend, buy some tickets for
Are
the
the
Magic.
people who are upset about it those that haven't bought tickets?
I don't know. We've not got any to give away either, as opposed to every other
I'm
media.
sure we will. We
Or
will.
the summer bash. I mean, we can sell you a T-shirt, but I don't know how much money we'd make on that, to be honest.
Well,
Okay, right, t-shirts.
did I read Mr. Alston saying that they were looking to get 63,000 to live at Liverpool over 2 days? Was that right? I think I read that.
I think he'd like to. Otherwise, it defeats the object of moving it from Newcastle, where they did get those sorts of figures.
I don't know what the game plan is, to be honest. The pitch is too small for a start, but that's just been brushed under.
I just think it's more to do with the fact, apart from the fact that we need to go back and decide exactly what we want out of Magic Weekend.
Right.
Doesn't it have to be a weekend, as in a destination whereby you will make a weekend of it,
Liverpool's
rather
quite
than
a nice place to go.
It is, but if you're from St Helens or Wigan or Warrington,
It's not much of a trip,
are you
I'd
going to stay overnight?
Well, no, you probably wouldn't, would you? Because it's economic to just
Absolutely.
nip back home and then nip back to Liverpool the next day.
Mm.
But if you were going from Hull, you'd probably stay overnight.
You could, but
Or Leeds. Well, even Leeds. Not that
Or
much on the
Liverpool.
train. Yeah. I don't know. Look, listen. The Magic Weekend has been.
well, you're very much one for home and away fixtures.
Yeah,
but this is the one that skews the
Excuse
the
league
whole
table.
season,
Yeah, that's
doesn't it?
right. Yeah. I mean, it's been a a mystery since the get-go what they were going to do with it, and it came with all the fanfare of expanding the game to either Scotland or Wales, didn't it? And
it sort of worked in Cardiff.
It was all right in Cardiff, apart from the time they held it in February.
That wasn't
it was so cold that you could,
But the fact that you could make a weekend out of it, and the stadium was right in the middle of the city.
Right,
Newcastle ticks every box, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Sean Wayne doesn't want to be on this programme.
No, he wouldn't be.
He did once.
I just don't know what
I don't know what the purpose of it is.
It's like anything else. As Mrs. Studd always says to me when I'm doing something, I'm going to email something. She always says, "Look, start off by working what on earth you're trying to achieve, and then we'll work out how you can achieve it."
Can you imagine she says that quite a lot?
Said almost on a daily basis. But unless Mr. Elston and co actually know what they're trying to achieve on the Magic Weekend, it's very difficult to achieve it, isn't it? So I don't know what he's trying to achieve.
Are you going? Why aren't you going? Do you like
More
it?
important than those who are going, why are those who are not going deciding to withdraw their support?
Tim says event fatigue? We don't have enough events.
No, we need more events.
What more?
There's an event which you call Catalan away an event. London away could be an event if you chose to sort of like go into London and enjoy the sights, or go to the West End or something. And the Challenge Cup final is an event.
Yep.
The grand final could be termed an event.
I think Challenge Cup semi-finals are now an event.
Challenge Cup semi-finals are an event. How many events do you want? Any international is an event. Is there any internationals on?
That's where the theory falls slightly to the ground.
Honestly, the World Cup qualifier in next month.
Greece and Norway in London. Yes.
I don't know I don't know if the Magic. It
just
might have had its day.
Yes, I think that's the other thing.
It might have had its day because, look, I mean, do you want to go? Do you want to go and schlep to Anfield to watch a league game between
Leeds and London?
But if you want a new audience, for the sport, then do you not have to take it to areas where you are attracting people who wouldn't normally go to rugby league?
Well, then you've got to work out. So you go to Newcastle. Did that attract any new people to watch the sport?
Well,
and if so, how many?
According to the figures that were given out by the RFL, because they were in charge of the game at the time, a long time ago when they were, that around about, I think it was 15% of the people came from the northeast, which again begs the question.
But once they've been once, what did they do then?
Well, Cramlington go every year with their orange t-shirts.
What's happening in the northeast though this year at St James's Park?
Well, Rugby Union is cashing in on the audience that we've created.
No, well, hang on a minute. Let's have it right. They've been there before.
Yeah,
they played World Cup games there, didn't they?
And they've got a Premiership team there.
Yes, I know they did. And they played a fixture there in the Premiership, and also at the last Rugby Union World Cup they played at Newcastle, didn't they? South Africa played. I can't remember.
Well, talking of the World Cup, we took a game to Bristol on a wet Wednesday, the lowest ranked game of the entire World Cup, of which there were 8,000 people. Yeah. Virtually 90-odd% of whom must have been from Bristol, because there weren't hordes of traffic travelling down the M4 on a wet Wednesday night. No. But we never took anything back now. So I think we're guilty of not cashing in on some of the areas that we have tried to expand into.
Well, here's marching on together. St James's Park is the perfect location. A short walk from the ground are an array of bars, that's the key word, restaurants, takeaways, chicken cottage, cafes, perfect for a boozy weekend. Anfield is not. It's surrounded by boarded houses. It is a huge downgrade, says marching on together. That might be part of the reason.
But we are going to have Liverpool in Super League by 2023.
Which is interesting because...
Not in League One, but in Super League. They haven't even been admitted yet. But they're going to be in Super League by 2023.
I'm not a journalist, but I am told that journalists usually wait for two sources before they say something. However, I've heard from one source that the Rugby Football League are not accepting any other clubs from the UK into their pyramid. Now, that could be completely wrong, but that's what I've heard from a source. So, I don't know. Where's the Cumbrian Lakers? The people who make the most money...
Where indeed will Hemel Stags be next year?
Ottawa. The biggest fans of Dr. Kukash are people who've got to fill pages on the internet, which is infinite, to get clicks about what Dr. Kukash is doing next. But there you go.
Well, he's got a hotel in Liverpool, so I presume we're all going there for a drink after the Magic Week.
Possibly.
They'll be on the house.
Are the sponsors inviting us this year?
I doubt it.
There was a big media brief. Well, there was a media briefing with Robert Elston last week. Guess who wasn't there?
Well, I certainly wasn't.
Rob wasn't there.
Does that help you?
But I never get invited for these things. Well, no, in fairness, now Andy Wilson did invite me to the RFL thing the other week, but I was busy because I had to work and earn some money. to do this.
One of the things Mr. Elston is proposing is a rebrand of Super League. So, assuming you were the consultant,
Sam Tomkinson.
well, he's had a caution today, so he's off.
Down. No good.
You're
Right.
employed by Mr. Elston as your consultant of choice.
Well, what does he mean by that? Because
I want to rebrand Super League, he says. So
does
you've
that
got
mean-
the
does
blank
that mean-
sheet of
Does that
paper.
mean he's going to abandon the word Super and League, or does it mean he's going to have a new logo with Super League?
Well, apparently it's going to be carried out by the same people that rebranded the Premier League.
As the Premier League.
Well,
With that new
well,
badge
well,
with
hang
the
on,
lion.
well, hang on a minute.
Has the Premier League been rebranded?
Yes, quite a few
It's got a
times
new
actually.
badge with a
Right.
lion and
It started off as the FA Premier League, then it became the FA Premiership, and then it went back to the FA Premier League.
because people still
Right.
go to the Premiership and get annoyed, you see.
So what would be the first thing that you'd do
And
to
it also,
rebrand it?
also, the sponsor of the competition has sort of changed in different places there. So when it went to the Premiership, it was sponsored by the beer Carling, so it was the FA Carling Premiership, not the Carling FA Premiership. And then it became the Barclays Premier League, without any mention of the FA. So there's been all sorts of subtle rebrands. I'm sure it's made a great difference to your enjoyment of the FA
I think
Premier
people only turn up on the basis of what a
League.
competition
Yeah, exactly.
is
And
called.
the logo's changed a bit, hasn't it?
Well, that's the thing. If
The logo's changed.
So surely,
So-
if we're going to change Super League, however we're going to change it, then the same teams playing the same number of games, which is too many,
Right.
in the same format, with virtually the same players, although we have had a couple of extra marquee players this year who have added a bit of glamour.
I don't know if he's going to change it to
Surely that's what he's
Premier
got to
League.
change.
Is he going to change it to Premier League Rugby?
Ooh, that's getting a bit close to...
the other lot.
That's the Premiership.
Yeah.
isn't
would
it?
people know the
Or is it?
difference?
Yeah.
They have the Premier 15s as well, which is their women's competition.
Or would
as well,
you,
Premier
would you
30.
perhaps bring in a team like Toronto?
Super
Although
15, Super Rugby.
Mega Race Rugby League.
I think you've got to have 13s in it somewhere.
Image is everything, writes Paul Bennett in League Weekly. Or so they say.
Well-
May is fixing to be a massive month in shaping Super League's new, quotes, young, confident and ambitious narrative.
Well,
Okay.
I don't know. What does he think would be better than Super League?
Well, it means...
Well, when you've spent 23 years promoting a brand, you would be foolish to throw that away, wouldn't you?
You say promoting the brand. They don't actually promote the brand very well at all because the difference is...
So is that the answer? Not changing the brand,
well,
but
if you
promoting
look,
the
if you
brand?
look at the Premier League, all the Premier League teams have got the Premier League badge on, haven't they? And the NFL in America, they've all got the NFL badge on. It's instantly recognisable. So why haven't they got? Why isn't the
Well,
it did start, didn't it?
we had it
Super
on
League.
the
Yes, at
on
start.
the
S was
sleeves.
there.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's suddenly it's kind of like been pushed into the background. The S, hasn't it?
It
Well, that
does-
should be your brand, shouldn't it?
It does look like it will still be Super League, but with a new logo and,
Yeah.
quote, shiny new fonts. Can't beat a good font.
Right.
Well,
That's
again,
the way-
I think that'll put 10,000
Yeah.
on the gate. at
Well,
Salford.
we are looking to
That's
shed
all.
Rugby League's old Whippets and Flat Cats reputation, which of course is a reputation currently taken forward by two of the players one of the players in the competition, the ones at Toronto in their podcast, isn't it? But there you go. So that's the excitement of the rebrand of Super League. Everyone's excited.
I
about
think-
that. We are very cynical people on this program.
Well, there was
No,
some,
I
there was
ju-
some
I
talk
just
about
think
having
you-
less clutter on the shirt, wasn't there? I think someone was talking about.
But don't they bring in
You're
money?
only playing on the margins there, aren't you?
Well, look, you don't get me started on shirts. I mean, look,
Get your Magic Weekend shirts now.
look
by the way.
just for the sake of example, I like a lot of what Warrington did with Carl Fitzpatrick at the sea. I think it's brilliant, and the Wolfie and the Wire Fly, absolutely fantastic. Right, so they bring out this kit for the Magic Weekend, which they celebrate in great style, and everyone goes, "Oh, this is the fill in the blank here reason for this anniversary of fill in the blank here," and this one happens. The fill in the blank happens to be when they played Wigan in a game in Milwaukee.
Yes.
Right, and everyone goes, "What a brilliant kit! Oh, it's the best kit I've ever seen. Fantastic! I'll tell you what, if it's so fantastic, why are you playing that every week? That's a good idea. Playing that kit every week instead of that thing you've got on at the moment, and then you wouldn't have to have it as a special kit. And then the teams will then get to a cup final and have another kit and a Magic Weekend kit
Well,
and a Catalan kit to play in one match in the Camp Nou.
That has Betfred rubbed
Right.
out
So
because they can't sponsor it over there.
why don't they just play in an iconic kit?
Well, unfortunately, all the promotion around this
What?
Milwaukee game is slightly undermined by the fact that the two teams are now playing each other the week before in the Challenge Cup as well.
I think like how
Well, there you
Wakefield's special...
Is there going to be a special kit for
Special
that?
cup kit.
Yeah. Wakefield's Magic Weekend special kit is to celebrate losing in the Yorkshire Cup final.
Well,
which people
they
didn't realise.
Well, they played in Wigan and Warrington played in the cup final 20 something. When was it? 1990?
90.
No.
91 was Wigan Saints, wasn't it? And 92 was
92?
Wigan Cass, I believe.
Right. Well, anyway, come on. You're meant to be the rugby.
It was, it was early
We've got a
90s. It was pre-Super
Right.
League.
So why don't they just reprise the kit from that?
But why
Don't
would
have
you want
another
to
kit?
bring out a kit
With
for
no
a game
one.
that you lost? That's the
What's
thing about
Wakefield?
Wakefield, aren't they?
Yeah, but
They're celebrating losing a cup final in
I
1979.
don't
But
think they
seriously, though.
realised that.
But
Ah,
seriously,
They brought out the
right.
kit.
Do they also realise that 1979 cup final
Yeah.
was in fact the worst one we'd ever seen?
Yeah.
at
Well, I
Wembley?
wasn't born, so I haven't seen.
but seriously now, if things are so bad that you can't make ends meet without punting out 4, 5, or however many kits in the season, then what on earth's going on?
But isn't that
is it
also
really that
preaching
bad?
to the converted? Because the only people that will buy that are the people that you're always expecting to buy
Yeah.
things.
Well, just
How
have
does that
2.
make it youthful and...
Just have 2 and
Vibrance.
and play in the home kit unless there's a clash.
The other thing
Well, that was a great thing in the Women's Super League last week where Saints played Bradford. It was on Easter Monday, wasn't it? It was on the app. And both teams were wearing white.
We've moved away from distinct colour contrast in kits as well. That your home kit would be dark or light, your away kit would be light or dark. There would never be a clash. And if two teams played
Where
each
was
other,
the real shocker recently? Was it Wakefield v Huddersfield?
Yes, it was where there was
were both
Wakefield
in
in blue and they were in kind of grey,
Blue.
purpley.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
What, I mean, who sanctions that? Why weren't they in?
but the NFL, you have to have a dark
Yeah,
kit
well,
and a
that's-
light kit,
that's
which
very
is
much
down
American
to black
sport,
and white
yeah.
photography in the newspapers the day after, so you can immediately differentiate the two competing
Right.
teams.
Good to know that we have had at least one vote for renaming Super League as Mega because it's better than Super Our Sam. Thanks to that, Sam. We're going to get our
Sensational league.
get our invoice into where the Super League headquarters are these days. It's the 1895 Cup this weekend.
Excellent.
Round 1, Hunslet Workington live on the Our League app. I've got in fact, Workington just reminds me. Everyone's getting sacked these days. Your columnist Leon Price gone. Richard Marshall gone. Fella from Rochdale maybe gone.
What do you make of that, Richard Marshall, particularly at Halifax?
Well,
I think Leon is incredibly unfortunate. He's a victim of short-termism. That I understand why Workington need to get out of League One this year, and they've lost 3 games. So,
We've 4 now.
But I mean, they've lost 3 on the trot. Are you surprised that Richard Marshall, who is hailed as one of the
moderately surprised, but I don't know the reasons why the board of directors think they should go in a different direction. I don't know what they expect. I don't know what their budgets are. I don't know what what they've demanded of the coach or what performance indicators they've set. I don't know really what's going on. But speaking broadly,
can he do any better than the best part-time team?
well, I mean, speaking broadly, you're back to the same equation. If you want to get better results, then generally you need to get better players, and if you can't afford to get better players, you've got to recruit the best you can on the budget you've got, and they probably are doing that, aren't they? You'd imagine from the results they've got a low budget compared with some of the teams in that division. Namely, when they've been asked to compete with Toronto, who are spending, I mean, Toronto's wage bill must be, $2.5 million if it's a penny. So
is that allowed under the salary?
well, they can have marquee players, can't they? Can't they? Can affect.
John Wilkin, Aston
Right.
Sims, Ricky thingy.
So it's very hard. I mean, but I don't know who they think they can appoint. Now, if just living in a fantasy world, everyone screamed blue murder said it's absolutely outrageous that Richard Marshall's got the sack. If they wheeled in Craig Bellamy next week, you said brilliant, it was great we got rid of Richard Marshall. That's fantastic, great decision. But if they wheel me out, they think, what the hell are they doing? So, but generally, Halifax are shopping in a certain shop for coaches, aren't they? It's like they're not an elite level team. They're not got a huge budget, like Leeds Rhinos or St Helens or whatever. So they're in that certain
Not
shop.
Wigan.
Or Wigan. They're in that shop at the moment, aren't they? So can they get anybody better than Richard Marshall? They obviously think they can. Whether they can or not, well,
Or is it an economic
probably
decision?
not.
Well, that's what Rick says on
It's difficult.
Facebook.
Is the worry that clubs like Halifax are trying to sustain themselves, and because they'd already intimated to Richard Marshall that perhaps his contract wasn't going to be renewed at
Right.
the end of the year, or the players that he perhaps had identified
Maybe they want
that they
somebody
need.
cheaper than Mr. Marshall.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is it an economic decision? In which case, should we be worried that a club like Halifax, or should we be lauding them for cutting their cloth according to their means, which is what
First of all, you need to know why they don't want to employ Richard Marshall as a coach next season. Is it because the budget doesn't allow them to do it? Is it because they think they could get someone better? Is it because they don't think he's very good? Is it because they think the results should be better? I mean, there's a myriad of reasons why a club would want to go in a different coaching direction.
Does it seem odd to you after 12 games of a season? It's not like they're
well, they said that they were going to change it for next season. They did.
The league.
I'm right in thinking they said they weren't going to employ him next season.
I think that was part of the reason behind it.
Get out now, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it may well be that he turned around and said,
well,
if you don't want me, I can go and get a job as an assistant in a Super League club.
Yeah, possibly. Within English sport, the culture is if somebody says to a coach, "We don't want you next season," that's an anathema in English sport. Whereas in Italian football, it's fairly common. Like the manager of AC Milan might say halfway through a season, "I'm going to manage Napoli next season," but I'm cracking on with the job here, and I'll do the best I can. But over here, we immediately think we smell a rat. Okay, he can't coach a team. How will he coach against Napoli when they play them? It's outrageous. He won't try. But that doesn't work like that, does it? So it's all commonplace in continental sport, but over here it's like if you say we don't want you next season, the immediate thing is we should walk out now, isn't it?
I just think if we drew up a list of clubs that would be dispensing with their coach a third of the way through the season, Halifax wouldn't have been towards the top of that list, I don't think.
Could have done a Wigan if he'd have stayed on. Could have won the
Sean Wayne, coach of Halifax.
He's busy with the Scottish Rugby.
Probably more likely to be the coach of Wigan next season than he is the coach of Halifax.
Which is not going to be Chris Chester because he denied that last week.
He did.
So I asked the important questions at these press conferences.
Denied that he was going to be the coach of Wigan?
Yeah.
What price is he to be the coach of Wigan?
I think he was 4-1, but I couldn't find a price with the sponsors who apparently had priced this up. But
right.
It looks as though Wigan's coaching hiatus is going to come to a head within the next couple of weeks because Adrian Lam has now come out and said a decision needs to be made. I think we can safely say he has thrown his hat into the ring to stay for another year. If you were Wigan, would you be announcing now that at least there's some continuity?
Well, they've already announced the coach for 2021. So how many goes are they going to have at it? They're going to another guess. Come on now. If I were Wigan, I'd keep my head down. I mean, look, if they come out,
do they need to appoint somebody?
What, for next season?
Yeah.
Well, just let Sean O'Loughlin do
it, or just
why do they?
Extend the contract of Adrian.
Well, at the moment, nobody knows who's going to be coaching any of the Super League teams next season. You're just assuming, aren't you? You're assuming that Justin Holbrook is going to coach St Helens next season. But why are you assuming that?
But Wigan actually
if Melbourne Storm
we need more semantics in rugby league.
Wigan have a vacancy though, don't they? Unless they actually say that Adrian Lam is going to be their coach from here on in. At the end of this season, he is leaving.
That's right.
He has now said, well, actually, it probably is doing us a little bit of harm and the uncertainty.
Well, at the moment,
and I am available.
At the moment, he'd be the favourite on the grounds. He's sat in a chair, although the music is still playing.
So would you not just appoint
him in the chair when the music stops?
Would you not appoint him?
Why would you do that?
I don't know, just to get some degree of stability in the club.
Well, you would if you thought. Well, you see, the problem you've got here, you see, because you could fall into what sporting aficionados now describe as Solskjaer syndrome. And you can be lulled.
Which is hilarious.
and
we all saw it coming, and it's like,
you could be lulled into a situation where you're duped by short-term patterns of results, which may or may not have anything to do with the performances. You might have a few lucky results.
Which certainly hasn't happened.
Right, no, so you could go the other way then, couldn't
you?
You could think that Adrian Lam's no good because of a series of results where they've won 5 out of 13. You think that's absolutely rubbish. But some of them have been narrow and they might have won, and another.
And they've had a number of injuries.
They could have had 7 wins.
We've got someone coming in who knows all about being sacked.
Hello?
Early. Oh, it's here. Here he is. Scary, everybody.
The right person
to
ask about sacked coaches.
Sacked coaches, yeah. So the thing with Lam, it's a bit difficult to. You can't judge a man on 13 matches, can you?
No.
So
and they obviously didn't have sufficient faith in him, other than to offer him a 1-year deal.
No, but they thought that they were going to employ Edwards, didn't they?
Yeah, but they didn't say, but Lam can stay on as his assistant or.
No, but they also thought that
staff.
everyone thought that was going to happen, and even Lam did, didn't he? So Lam did. But if I were Wigan, look, they're not. A club of Wigan's standing in World Rugby League is not going to be short of applicants in a coaching position whenever they
Richard
advertise
Marshall's available.
He's available, yeah, but there could be any number. Look, Wigan could go shopping at quite nice rugby league coaches shops, and they could have if they fancied a coach from lower down the Super League, they could tempt probably quite a few of those to take the job, couldn't they, as well? So they won't go short of offers. They've got plenty of time. They don't need to do. They don't need to do it now. What's the point?
I'm concerned that people.
Mr. Lamb says they do. He thinks that
maybe
it's
trying
a
to force
disruptive.
their hand.
Well, and so would you give him the job?
No.
That's the question. Would you give him the
dictated
job?
No, I wouldn't, to be honest with you. I think I think you look at the way that we're going to play, and I think at times
Gary Schofield, everybody.
When you, I think it's
We're now up to 46 Great Britain caps.
certainly we see Wigan play, and when you see Wigan play, I think that the players just look lost, don't they? They're not lost in what they're supposed to be doing.
I was going to ask you about I mean, we all know that the third game at Easter is the one where we can only laud the players for playing under severe duress.
They have no choice.
But and you have to say the defence in the Wigan Castleford game was absolutely admirable in terrible conditions. But as a spectacle,
would you use the word filth to describe that match?
Oh, it was awful. It was absolutely.
So you can rebrand Super League as much as you want, but if you're still going to have a congested fixture list,
it was awful. And to be honest with you, for entertainment value, I would have given it 1 out of 10 because the players turned up, but also as well, Phil. To be honest with you, it's all right saying, well, you know, the defence has got to be admired. Well, in the day, if you don't move the ball, anybody can tackle. Even I could have tackled that sort of thing in my day. To be honest with you,
now we get on the realms of the
but you know what I'm coming from. If you don't move the ball, it's so easy. It's so easy to defend. You know, and that was exactly the scenario from there. It was an absolute awful game, and I know, you know, they're talking about the discussion of the Easter weekend of maybe getting shut of it now and what have you, but still, the players have got to go out there and do a little bit of entertainment, and that was absolute dross. It was. Yeah. If anybody thinks any different, well, you must be watching a different game to me.
Both teams went out onto. They appeared to have the attitude that they went out not to lose rather than try to win, didn't they? So by that I mean. What I mean by that is, like, you know, to go out and throw the ball around trying to score tries. Instead it was like, well, let's not drop the ball and kick it up the other end and hope for the best and make sure that we don't. It was like that, wasn't it? And it just became. Neither team was capable of doing anything beyond the basics.
Didn't do the sport any favours at all.
No, it was awful. Rubbish. Absolute awful.
Absolute rubbish.
So now people have been more upset about Toronto and their pretend crowd than no one being at Wigan.
It was nearly a capacity crowd, I'll have you know. It was only 30 something short of the official capacity of the stadium.
People upset because
there wasn't a hint of irony in that tweet that you put out then.
They've given away free tickets and they've got a beer festival.
They were all in the beer garden.
They were in the beer garden, were they?
Well, in fairness, did you watch the game?
I did.
Got all Swinton on the telly. You're upsetting your columnist Martin Calder as well. Well, I think he agreed. Right. In fairness, but this is people moan about Toronto being on the telly. See what we're going to get. They are going to have games which are not entertaining because they've all got to be on the telly. Hopefully, this week against Bradford will be quite good, but we'll see. I don't know. But are Toronto the issue? Not really.
I think we're at a very interesting place with Toronto at the moment because Mr. Elston is wanting to put in extra caveats for expansion teams to get promoted, which obviously wouldn't apply to Toronto because he brings in a quota. Then they would have to be in if they finish top because we haven't reached that quota level yet.
No, they've got to win the league. They've got to.
But I said if they do. Yeah. But what we have got is, and there's no reason for us to dispute the fact that there were 9,500 people there for a game that was almost a foregone conclusion before it kicked off. Well, and you look at some of the crowds in traditional areas, and
rugby teams.
Robert Elston's talking about appealing to a newer, younger audience. Well, he's got that in Toronto.
Yes, well, you expect. Well, I mean, look, they're an expensively assembled team of at that level, top quality rugby league players on big salaries, playing in a big city with. I mean, what's the population of Toronto? 5 million or something. I don't know. It's an enormous place, isn't it?
Yeah. Right. Well, they've got 6 professional sports teams.
So They will attract a big crowd. You'd expect to attract a big crowd. It's well marketed. They've signed a lot of good players. You know, if you go back to the World League of American Football when the London Monarchs were playing, their first season they got 40,000 average gate. You know, so these things will happen because people want to see top class players playing sport. So Toronto have done a great job in marketing the game and getting all those players in. It's just a question of where does it go now? Because
is it too late to be having these discussions about where does it go?
I don't know, because are you going to carry on just dropping in teams? Effectively, they've got the same players as Warrington could have, haven't they? They've got a bunch of English rugby league players with some Antipodeans. Are you going to drop them in to various cities around the world? A bit like happened with the World League of American Football, by the way, where it was like second-grade NFL players. Is everyone going to carry on? Is that going to carry on washing? That's the question. Will people in Toronto carry on watching a team of Englishmen and Australians playing rugby league against English teams?
Yes.
I've got no idea whether they will or whether they won't.
Because I think there is a history.
The World League of American Football didn't last that long.
No,
they've resurfaced twice.
But I think there is a history in place in sports like basketball that where you come from is not an issue, provided you have an association with the city that you're playing for.
Okay.
And as you say, you're good. because people won't go on
okay,
watch
so
teams.
if that's
So
going to work,
I think
right,
that
so,
would work in
okay.
North America.
Right. Okay. So then, if you drop in Toronto, Ottawa, New York, how many teams do you? Because they say they should only have 3, but would you? How many do you drop in before it ceases to become an English rugby league? This is the problem for Elston, isn't it?
Mm.
That's what he's worried about. He's worried that it won't be an English rugby league.
But
And
what
eventually
we've got
it'll be.
is the RFL allowed to admit these teams, and then Elston to pick up the pieces when they get to the top of the pyramid. And I think that's what he's saying about we need a quota system, because he doesn't feel enough due diligence was done before Toronto were admitted. Because exactly these sort of questions weren't asked.
Yeah, but you're talking about due diligence on the owners of the competition of
also,
the club. Sorry,
and
so,
also what you want from your competition.
Right, but if you are you
because what you haven't mentioned yet is the French connection.
Right,
because the next team that will possibly be in after Toronto, bearing in mind the league table at the moment, would be Toulouse. And the worry with Toulouse is that their home game on Saturday against York, and one of the most attractive home fixtures they will have this season, finished 30-26, apparently one of the games of the season, less than 2,000 people there.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't know. It's much more complex than just randomly.
Isn't this what a rebrand though is? Isn't this where you
Do you like-
redraw?
do you like-
We should have asked Scotty about the rebrand, yeah.
Well,
Would you be excited?
not really, because where, at the end of the day, where is the quality of players coming from?
Well, they'll just get.
At the end of the day,
Well, it'll be an English team playing in Toronto, won't it?
Yeah, but also as well, but like Toronto, if they get promoted, right? They all their journeymen there, they're going to get shelved down and bring better quality because they will finish bottom of the league.
Well, that's what they will do. He'll just spend more money, won't he?
But where are the quality players going to come from?
He'll sign them off. Yeah.
Where are they going to sign them from?
Well, he'll be able to attract some Australian players.
Well, they'll go and get James Martin, won't they? Who's available.
He'll have a couple of marquee players from Australia. Of like the Blake Austin style quality, for example, and then he'll sign players from
the
Super
top,
League clubs.
the top echelons.
Like a Ryan Atkins from Warrington who's available.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Or Joe Weston's been to Toronto.
So get a team that would be of a decent quality, but it's just a question of whether do you think it's a good idea to have a team. It's a complex issue to have a team playing thousands of miles away or not.
Because it's such a complex issue, is this what the rebrand should be all about?
Well, look,
That we
World League.
World League of American Football,
World League.
World League of Rugby League, World League of Super League. Look, I would be surprised if the Rugby Football League and the newly branded Mega League, Elite
Mega
Division,
13.
Elite Division, Mega 13 Elite Division.
We'll get those t-shirts.
Aren't
made
having
up.
conversations with the NFL from the World League of American Football when they tried that, and also the Super Rugby. Because if you remember when they added in a Japanese team and they added in the Jaguars of Argentina, that was going to be this great panacea to solve everything. It hasn't really worked out like that.
Well, the Japanese are going, aren't they?
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. It was meant to be this, it would be a panacea, and they'd play in
Well,
Japan,
even
Argentina, South Africa, New Zealand, Australia, and it hasn't actually
some
worked
of
like
its
that.
luster.
Well, they've had to retrench, haven't they?
Yeah.
Don't say that when Nines is the cure-all for rugby
So
league.
it's not.
Oh, apparently, are you being announced as the England coach for the Nines? It's been announced tomorrow. Have you been approached? Exclusive?
No.
Oh, come
No.
on now.
Not on the management team?
No, nothing.
You could do a Brian Clough style team talk, couldn't you? You could go with the ball skill and go, there's the ball, go and play with it.
This isn't about.
That'd be marvellous.
Go on, express yourself.
No, that's it.
This isn't about defence.
That'd be marvellous, wouldn't it? There's the ball. You go and throw
Chip
it
and
around.
chase as much as you like.
The game plan is quite simple. We score more points. We got
That's it,
to win. Simple
That's it, yeah.
as. Simple as. There's
You
that's
score
nothing
5
to add.
tries, we score 6.
Exactly.
The Kevin Keegan of Rugby League.
Nothing to add about that, is it?
No.
That's what Nines are all about.
Of course it is. It's an entertainment product.
So
That's
that's
the point of it.
So that's been announced tomorrow then, the England coach.
Yes,
of the
I think
Nines.
we'll know the England, and we'll also know.
Just tell me a little bit, because you're the expert on this.
We're in
Who
trouble.
are they? Who are they? Because like you mentioned the sevens there, the IU sevens, which is obviously a completely a touring circus
It's
with
separate.
completely
It's
separate.
related but separate.
Yeah, with the England team that
No one knows
plays
anything
sevens
about it.
successfully, and nothing to do with the Eddie Jones coached 50-a-side team. So, is that what we're going to see, or are we going to see a sprinkling of celebrities? And I don't mean like Gary Schofield. I mean
Russell
like like Sam Tompkins. Are we going to see some of the elite level players playing in that, or is it going to be completely
again, how can you introduce a World Cup without having some idea of the players playing in that format before they get to a World Cup?
That's what I'm saying. Are they just going to turn
Yes,
up and have a bit of a laugh?
Yeah.
But with Super League players, or will it just be a load of blokes that they think are quick?
I think we'll be
Right.
Bring back the British Call Nines as a kind of prelude to the tournament.
there will be some players who have unique specialisms in Nines, and you will
Because it's a
think
completely
that
different game,
yes,
isn't it?
yes.
Mason Caton-Brown, get him in there.
When is the Nines on?
It's 2 weeks after the grand final.
So
At the Bankwest Stadium.
So the players then who play for Great Britain can't play for the Nines, then, can they?
Yes, if they're part of the squad, they could.
Oh, can they select them as well? Can they?
Yeah, they
So
could.
play the Nines,
But they will be
Great
playing
Britain.
as England in the Nines and Wales. So
right, okay.
obviously,
Danny Ruff can play for England then.
so obviously
Regan
you would think
Grace.
that Regan Grace would be playing for
a
Wales
banker for
and
that,
would then
wouldn't he?
perhaps be
Man
available
of
to
his
play for Great
pace.
Britain on their tour because he'll be down
Right,
under
but
anyway.
will clubs make a fuss?
Have
You know, let's just say Regan Grace. So will Justin Holbrook say, well, listen, no, he needs to have a break in between. Let's say he's not in the touring pie, but in his office he's not.
But you're
He's
almost
played too many games.
saying
Lomax needs a
that
rest.
the
Blah
Nines
blah blah.
has been thrown together. You're almost hinting at that.
Is that the Regan Grace who wasn't allowed to play for Wales last year, apparently?
Well, I mean, again, we're not privy to whatever discussions are going on.
The other
There
thing
could be
about the
discussions.
Nines that I think is odd is that they've chosen the top 12 ranked nations and they've chosen 4 women's
teams,
nations. But the whole thing about Nines is that we were told it was a development tool.
Right.
So for nations like, for example, Jamaica and Serbia, Nines is ideal because you don't have to have an extended squad and you don't have to play as structured a defensive game as you would if you were playing in a normal test match. So Nines is the perfect vehicle for all of the nations underneath the top 12.
Exactly. Well,
but they're
that's
being
what's happened with-
excluded.
That's what's happened with Rugby Union Sevens, isn't it? You know, when you Fiji and Kenya and America, it's not dominated by New Zealand, South Africa, Australia.
Which is
and
what you
England.
want,
It's-
especially if you're going to get a new, younger, vibrant, rebranded
There's
audience.
some brilliant stuff in the sevens, yeah.
So I can't understand why we're not going to at least 16 in the Nines and having 4 development nations. You know, what great good it would do in the women's, for example, to have a Jamaica or a Canadian team in there.
Okay.
Spread the sport.
Yes.
There was a Canadian team in the last World Cup. Doing that
There was,
film.
but they're not in the Nines, which is odd.
Who knows what's going on? That'll be announced tomorrow then. Excitement. Find out who the England coach is on social media when everyone else reveals it.
coaches?
Who would it be if you were in charge of appointing? Do you think
Darryl Powell.
Darryl would be perfect for...
I'd look at, say, like a Darryl Powell on the show long, to be honest with you, because Long likes to play the game openness. So, yeah, look at the team of Darryl Powell and Sean Long.
And why not?
There you go.
Apparently-
and apparently James Lowe's...
Wayne Bennett it is then.
Obviously, I think we can guarantee it won't be.
John Brayman would have been the centres and showing plenty of pace.
Yeah, you want as many 4s as you can in a 9s,
That's
don't you?
it. Of course you do. Yeah.
So the
Shut up shop. We get one try early going. Shut up shop.
apparently we're getting a new Great Britain and Stroke England assistant coach as well because James Lowe's has now moved to Rugby Union. He was part of the England setup that beat
Of
New
course he was,
Zealand.
wasn't he? He was there in...
So-
Has anybody
Who
in
would
any
be on your
era of the
short
game
list?
gone between Rugby League and Rugby Union more times than James Lowe's? If he's a darts player, he'd be known as the oscillator.
The law of diminishing returns.
Would you be allowed to switch to the PDC and the BDO and the PDC
Yeah,
and the
yeah,
see which tournament
yeah.
he's eligible
It's
for?
dropping
So who would you bring into the Great Britain setup? Bearing in mind it probably won't be Darryl Powell because I think
John
Darryl wants either the top job or
John
Dal-
says
Dal-
Ian Watson.
Dallow
He's
won't-
Welsh.
Ian Watson,
Dallow doesn't want to work with him, does he? You
John
know, because-
Keir.
No. This kid is at his time. Look at somebody like a James Ford, if I'm honest with you, because he's got a massive future. James
That's not
Ford
bad shout.
has got a massive future in the game. You
I
know.
think Ian Watson's a great shout.
So Ian Watson,
because
I
again,
would-
He's Welsh.
if it's going to be a Great Britain in its
Wayne
truest
Bennett's
sense,
Australia.
Yeah.
That's true.
I wouldn't have any issues with Watson, but as I say, James
No,
Ford,
Ford's
I'd
not a
like
bad
to see.
shout.
apart.
That's a good shout, actually, isn't it?
James Ford, I'd
Yeah.
like to see.
Yeah.
We've got to talk about Hull, apparently, because we haven't talked enough about
Okay.
rugby. I don't think people listen to this programme. They don't know what we do. Hull are
neither
third.
do we, to be
No,
fair.
Hull are third in the table, and we need to celebrate this fact. They're on minus 10 points difference, but they're third in the table.
Why would
They beat Wakefield 30 points to 14. Why haven't we talked about Hull? Hull, they're third in the table.
well,
I don't know what we're
Does
supposed
that
to say.
say more about the
It
table, or does it say more about
Listen,
Hull?
Oh,
listen,
you
let's
looked
have
at
it
the Hull
right.
fans.
Let's have it right, because I want to get bombarded on Twitter later. Let's have it right. Let's have it right.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Rodney.
St Helens,
Hashtag stick to
St
the
Helens are
hashtag.
much the best, and Warrington are much the second, much better than the rest.
And everyone else is.
second. The rest of it is a mishmash of mediocrity, and it is musical chairs. And whichever 3 teams are in a seat when the music stops after 29 games will be in the playoffs, claiming some kind of success story, and they might actually win a playoff game just on the law. Saints or Warrington could be crippled by injuries, or something daft could happen. But I mean, Hull turned in arguably one of the worst televised performances not only of this season but of many seasons when they played at home to Warrington recently. Although they did attempt, in fact, no, it wasn't as bad as Warrington away last season, was it? Frankly, they'd gone for 5 more minutes, it'd have been 100. But they're not bad, but they're not anything to get excited about. Are they really? I know they've got players. I know Shaw and some of the better players haven't played, etc. and so forth. But they're not actually that good, are they? They're not somebody you sit there and go, these are brilliant.
With 4 or 5 other
and they
teams.
could be third, and if they're the third best, good luck to them. Fair play to them. But they're not. They're not.
I don't think they've necessarily turned their season around because they had a relatively good Easter, allowing for the fact that on the Monday they got absolutely.
But this is where again. The system is a farce because if it was first past the post, they couldn't do what they did. But listen, Lee Radford deserves to be properly praised for that because he basically said, "Well, we'll just fold our hand in that game. We'll give some guys some experience. If we get beaten 50 or 60, so what? It won't make any difference because we can still get into the top 5." So I say fair play to Lee Radford for literally saying
playing the system.
That played the system, which he did on occasion in previous seasons when he's got them into the playoffs. But I don't think this whole team is anywhere near as good as the one of what would it be? Not last season, the season before, and the season before that.
That won the cup.
Won the cup on both occasions,
and
they were very, they had leads clinging on in the end of that
100%.
That fight in the playoff, didn't they? If it had gone on 10 more minutes, you'd have fancied Hull to beat Leeds, wouldn't you? That year. So, and Hull were very close to getting to a grand final, and they might well have won it. So I think the whole team back then, a couple of years ago when they won the cup, and let's have it right also, they played brilliant in those 2 cup finals, didn't they? So, they were really good. They're nowhere near as good as they were then. But with the system, they could still get into the top 5, and they may well get into the top 5, and they might have a run at it. But they're nowhere near St Helens.
Alan says you should rebrand it instead of Super League, the Mediocre League. But I don't know. We're going down the anti-Robert Elson route. Other podcasts do that.
Our resident Hull expert.
Well, they're not a good side school.
They do.
Gareth Ellis plays, they win.
Yeah, but we've been talking about for the last 2 weeks. It's all about the consistency, and at the end of the day, Saints and Warrington are showing that consistency. But as Rod has said, you can sling Hull, Wakefield, Cass, Catalans, the Red Devils. If Wigan go on the run of maybe 2 or 3 games, it might throw them in. But
they could. Yeah.
But there's 5 sides who can qualify for the other 3 places. But they're not consistent, and also as well the fact of the matter is they're not playing quality rugby league, and that's a debate.
I'll tell you what I'd be disappointed in here because say 5 or 6 weeks ago I had them down as definitely the clear third best to Castleford, and it's no good Daryl Powell coming out and got this player injured and that player injured and Luke Gale blah 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 because they haven't been good enough Castleford over recent weeks, have they?
Did you
been
find
poor.
it odd
They're losing
that
games they should be winning.
After the Wigan game that we were the better team?
I think you might say that because you look at the field position, certainly the first half.
The first half, they were on top, weren't they? Yeah.
But again, they were clueless.
They didn't score tries, Gary.
They were clueless in attack, exactly.
No.
So again, it's the old adage, but I say all the time: if you don't score more points in the position, I couldn't care less. The only stat that counts is the scoreboard.
They kicked a couple
as simple as that.
They kicked a couple of penalties. Yeah. Any team on their game would have gone in at half time, sort of 12, 14 0 up, wouldn't it? That would have been the end of it. It's in a 4-0, and it wasn't the end of it, obviously, was it? So. I've been disappointed in Castleford. I really have. I mean, they got out of jail. Well, they got out of jail against Wigan, didn't they? At home when they could have got beat. They nearly got run down by Wakefield. I just don't. I just think
something not quite clicking.
I don't know. I've been disappointed in Cass. Maybe I'm doing what I did with Hull. I'm holding them to the comparison to that brilliant team of a couple of years ago when I just think that they were just fantastic, and I used to love watching them. So maybe I'm unfairly comparing him to that team.
Chase Blair is arriving. He'll be in the country soon. So that's exciting. When's what's his name?
Ava supposed to be here this week.
Someone asked earlier. Ava
supposed to be arriving this week.
Hopefully they call him the gardener or something. That's Leeds' exciting signing. Should we talk about Leeds or should we talk about Hull for a bit?
Nobody wants to talk about Leeds.
How did Leeds nearly lost again? Nearly lost.
I think what we can talk about, if you like, is the best game that I saw over this Easter period, if you call it from Good Friday to yesterday, was actually the under-19s game between Wigan and Leeds yesterday. If that is an indication of the quality of some of the youngsters we've got playing the game and the commitment and skill with which they play it, then at least for those 2 clubs and St Helens, who we've obviously seen a lot of their youngsters playing in the first team, we are producing some real quality. Anybody who was there early yesterday before the Leeds Hull KR game and witnessed that under-19 clash, absolutely superb. brilliant and thoroughly enjoyable. If it's on some iPlayer somewhere, then
I think it's on the YouTube.
Do watch it. And it's not the result. It's to do with the quality of the play.
I must say as well, fellas, I've had a phone call today from the Whitehaven chairman, and thanks very much, Gary, for the phone call. And he's a little bit disappointed, and I'm sure it should be as well, because Whitehaven are on the top of the league, and they're not being given much praise for it, to be honest with you.
Well, in fairness, only 852 people bothered to watch them yesterday.
Yeah, Rich, I understand that, but they're not being given the credit what's due, and I think Gary Charlton has done a great job there, because what Gary's done and his philosophy, and I think other clubs should be doing it, is picking the local lads. Gary's got that from there. They're getting that consistency. So I say, well, Whitehaven from there, they deserve to be top of the league. Yeah, everybody would love more people going from the turnstiles.
It was a draw, Rich.
But Whitehaven are up there and fully
the other big news for them this week.
Just on this, very quickly though. I mean, there was only 812 there. If they had Golden Point, there'd have been about 8,000. Wouldn't they?
Well, that's how you rebrand the sport.
They get one step closer to Wembley this week because they travel to Oldham in the 1895 Mega Cup.
The other thing they announced this week was their proposals for a new stadium. Well, for renovating their current stadium. So again, they're going forward as a club.
I'll tell you what as well. If Keighley, if they wouldn't have had the 12 points deducted, I think they're on -1 now.
They are.
Well, Keighley themselves, they would have been joint top. So. Another young coach who's doing a great job is Craig Lingard. He's had to work with plenty of adversity, to be honest with you, from there. What happened?
Could be the next Halifax coach.
Under Shane Spencer and Steve Gill. So Craig Lingard's doing a great job at Keighley, and who knows that they may get in the top 6.
We discussed Richard Marshall before you arrived. Surprised that we don't know the circumstances on either side, whether it's an economic decision or we think that obviously he was told that next year his contract probably wouldn't be renewed, and it could well be that they're cutting their cloth according to their means, which we've lauded Michael Carter for doing at Wakefield. But are you surprised that Richard Marshall has left Halifax
I'm very
after
surprised.
12 games?
Yeah, very surprised because he's done a great job, hasn't he? And and I'm led to believe, and I know he's still got the respect of all the players. The players wanting to play for him, and it's still a happy place under Marshall. So obviously, if it's happened behind closed doors, he's not happy with it, and he said, right, okay, then if I'm not part of the future, I guess you better look for somebody straight away because I don't want to be part of it. But he won't be out of the game long.
Where do you think he'll turn up? A Super League assistant?
I think maybe Wakefield, Chester. I think does he assistant from there? Gilmore. I know Gilmore works. Gilmore's assistant at the moment. He works on the defence.
Leeds are looking obviously because Richard Agar's only doing it on a temporary basis.
He certainly wouldn't look out of place at Leeds, that's for sure. But yeah, something where Leeds and Wakefield, without a doubt.
We've been pulled up because Castle have got 10 players out injured, but there's other people who pointed out everyone's got about 10 players out injured.
Listen, every team has got injuries, and the thing
were Castle looking great before those injuries?
No, hang about as well. I mean, if you've got 3 scrum halves injured, you've only got 1 player missing, really, haven't you? In essence, you can't play 3 scrum halves every week. So if you've got Gale missing, Rankin or whatever it is,
and
Ellis, right? The second and third one almost ceases to become irrelevant, doesn't it? So it's always a smoke screen, isn't it? Every coach who loses games has always got injuries, haven't they? I mean, they've all got injuries. St Helens won. How many did they score yesterday? Was it 50,
well, they apparently had, according to Rommel, saying 12 academy players in their squad yesterday. So that's,
Saints?
Yeah, so they've done well.
Well, apparently, that
can be done.
He's the reason we're top of the league this season. Lachlan Coo, he didn't play, did he? So I know it's voluntary.
Yeah, but players, most of them injured, they were arrested.
Yes, I know, but it's the same difference, isn't it? If they're missing 10 first teams, what are they? I mean, I'm sure Justin Holbrook could list a load of players he was missing.
Well, to be honest with you, I get fed up with this moaning about injuries.
There is actually some Castleford fans think there is a media conspiracy against Castleford because of the Michael Shenton thing last week.
Why?
It's his fault. He shot the ball.
Well, no, the opposition were at it as well, weren't they? They were all at it.
We all picked on Michael Shenton.
Well, it was a particularly glaring example of the genre, wasn't it? I mean, let's have it right.
Should we have brought in laws to change that, or have we again created another stick to beat ourselves with? They were there, weren't they? The laws were there. They just needed to be applied. We didn't need to rush through new laws that confuses it even more.
Mr. Ganson had already stipulated what was going to happen, and people might have seen on Twitter there was a Bradford Featherstone game, wasn't there, when exactly that thing happened. There was a pass from Fed guy into a Bradford bloke who was just wandering around, and Featherstone got penalised. That was a couple of weeks before the pass into the Rockathon between Catalans and Castleford, so they didn't need to make a big song and dance about it.
The RFL ignoring the championship.
Championship,
something happens in Super League and all hell breaks.
They didn't need to do anything. All they needed to say was like, look, you can imagine now. What I can't understand is why they didn't just reiterate the ruling that they said before, right? And you can imagine how. Sorry to mention the word rugby union, but I mean the top rugby union reps. If that had happened in a rugby union game, they'd have pulled them over and said, "Listen, stop acting the goat here. Stop messing around. Right? Don't pass it at a bloke on the floor. And if you do, we're going to penalise you. Now just stop being a fool and get on with the game." And that had been the end of it. So I don't know why that didn't happen.
It's not an issue in the NRL.
No, but so in that Catalan game, whichever Catalan player was it? Was it Champagne Tony Gijo or somebody? Whoever did it first in that game. Why didn't they just pull him in and say, "Listen, stop acting like an imbecile.
Yeah.
Don't throw it at him. Right, just play the ball now, and we're getting on with it. If you do it again, right, it's going to be a penalty. And I'm warning you as well at the other end. You don't play these silly games either. And we're going to get on with it." And that'd been the end of it. So,
which actually Ben Thaler was starting to do because he'd ignored a couple of them.
Yes.
In games.
Yeah, just ignore it. Just get on with it. But now you create a rule where it says that if you can get in the way of a pass, basically,
you get a penalty.
If you're in the ruck and you can crawl around like a
pretending
drunk,
as though you're trying to get out the way,
pretend that you're getting away and act like a drunk man trying to find his house keys on a Friday night. Thanks. Is that right? Yeah,
Robert Alston.
Thanks, Robert. You get a penalty. That will happen.
Cheers, old bean.
And then you get the problem where you see one game on TV and nothing happens, and it's that means on a one game sample that the new laws are a success.
I should say
it's ridiculous
regarding referees, and I know how easy it is to get a letter printed in the League Express.
Letters under a pseudonym.
Under a pseudonym. Plenty.
No one's ever done that. Right.
But why? I've turned it to
points of view.
Why? Where's
Harry
Robinson?
More Anne Robinson.
Why have they printed this letter slagging off James Child? James Child must be the worst referee in the history of rugby league, says G. Dawson of Castleford. He obviously hasn't watched rugby league now. What's the point in printing a letter?
Nothing.
Well, next we'll be claiming that referees determine the outcome of matches.
We would have won the Super League. Yeah,
sure they could have. Found
I'm not going to watch because X is the referee.
Right.
Bring back televised draws. I always look forward to seeing the Challenge Cup draw live on TV, but it never seems to happen these days. Because there's a bloody big church on fire in Paris. And before that, there's no one in anyone's interested in. You're thinking of the olden days when it wasn't on TV anyway. Just a short thing.
It was on Up North with Harry Grayson.
Or it was on local radio.
Harry Grayson did it.
Local radio.
I did it myself.
I did it on local radio once.
Yeah.
Do you remember they did it on 5 Live? Do you remember that?
I do,
yeah, we don't want to talk about that. No. We'll go down a whole rabbit hole there.
But anyway, we'll see what happens with these. Anyway, new rules.
The other thing I was going to say about the rules is
that
don't we have a procedure? Don't we have a rules committee?
Well, that's a great point.
Isn't there a meeting of the coaches on the 1st of May, and they will be the first people you would talk to about it?
It's quite interesting because either now Mr. Ganson or whoever instructed Mr. Ganson to change the rules is now doing it independently and arbitrarily, or they've abolished the rules committee completely without even the members of the rules committee being aware of that, because certainly the members of the rules committee that I know weren't aware that they'd been abolished, or the rules committee certainly weren't told of the rule changes.
Do whatever you want these days. That's what we're saying. Lee sent me a message earlier.
And does this mean, actually, just finally, that Mr. Ganson can unilaterally change the rules of the competition any time he likes?
Or was he, in fact, told by Mr. Elson, who's wanting to clean up the sport?
Could that really have happened?
Could that have happened?
Well, I mean...
That we can't allow this to happen anymore because of the new brand image that we've got of Super League being...
So now you're suggesting that the head of Super League is now...
No, I'm not suggesting. I'm saying, could that possibly have happened? Like introducing the golden point for only one of the competitions.
Yes.
Like him saying today that he wants 2 referees, even though the game has said we probably are not going down the road of 2 referees.
But we know Robert Elson is in the control of Ian Lennigan, etc., because the conspiracy theories tell me on Twitter.
Right. Must be true then. Congratulations to Neil Hodgell, by the way.
Why?
He completed the London Marathon.
Did he really? That's superb. Well done, Neil.
I don't know why people do that.
No, I'll tell you what. Anyone that can run any marathon at any time,
Senior,
anywhere, deserves respect.
Jamie Peacock, Keith Senior, Neil Hodgell.
Full credit.
Fantastic.
No, absolutely superb.
But particularly Neil, from the age point of view, I think that is.
How old is he?
No, but
he must be younger than me.
I don't know. I wouldn't dare to suggest how old you are. You're looking well.
Here's Lee.
Fair play.
Remember what happened to the players' union? Are they around still?
No, I think the head of the players' union is now on the coaching staff at Bradford, so I don't quite know how that works.
Here's Lee anyway, because this is a player union issue.
How does that work?
A cricketer, who I'm not going to name, has been banned for 21 days because we don't exactly know what he did, so I'm not naming him. A union player has been banned for 6 months, both for the second time, both for recreational drug use. Why are we banning our players for 2 years? I'm not in any way condoning it, but surely there's got to be parity. Your thoughts, please.
Who did the test on the cricketer? Who did the test on the cricketer?
It wasn't WADA.
Thank you.
So
if a club does
we have signed up to a code, which we need to get our money from Sport England.
The players do know. The players are told, aren't they? Don't take cocaine. Like
Yes.
they're told not to bet on sport. Like they're told not to do these things, and then they do it, and then they go, oh well.
You've got to bear in mind that clubs and lots of employers do independent tests for alcohol and drugs, don't they? Now that doesn't mean if one of their employees fails, they have to be banned from working for 2 years, does it? I mean, the employer then decides, well, you can be suspended from work for 3 weeks, which is what's happened with the cricket, isn't it?
But they're not signed up to WADA.
No, but even if they were, it's got to be a WADA test, isn't it? To rugby league clubs do tests for drugs and alcohol, etc., and so forth. That is independent from the WADA test.
They do,
don't they? But if a rugby league player fell foul of one of those tests, that wouldn't lead to him being banned, Zach Hardacre style, would it? Necessarily, because the club could suspend him of their own volition, couldn't they, and not reveal it to WADA.
But if it comes under a drug test sanctioned under WADA,
right? Okay.
The actual punishments are
set down,
prescribed.
but then they can be mitigated, as we've seen.
I know
so that's the difference between that and the cricket that you're referring to.
There you go. There was a very interesting story last week in League Weekly by our friend John Davidson about drugs testing at a recent Challenge Cup tie.
Or not drugs testing.
Which should be very interesting to see what comes of that from stories and scuttlebutt. Terry's been on. Talking about the Women's Super League game yesterday between Leeds and Cass. Leeds women in crisis.
You were there.
Now. Leeds women in crisis because they've lost their first game of the season, 27-0, not 29-0 as you may have read elsewhere. Commitment from both sides was impressive, and the crowd outstanding, 700 plus, 703 apparently. The first 1,000 plus crowd for Women's Super League regular game is achievable with good scheduling, says Terry. It is, and what we should do is not aim for 1,000. We should aim to break the world record because it's 5,000 or 4,800 and something. Because Harlequin said it earlier this year, and as we saw, it was a bit of a shambles world record. I don't know where the McQuirters were. I don't think they were there. But
has it not been sanctioned?
They put this thing on the screen that said tickets issued 4,800 odd, and I only got a C in English language GCSE. I think I know what tickets issued and people turning up through a gate means. So it would be fairly easy to send out 5,000 tickets.
Issue more than that, couldn't you?
And say, oh, look at this, we've broken the record. And I'm going to put it on Leeds' shoulders because they've got their own ground. Leeds Cass later in the year. Aim for
you can't have a world record on tickets issued, could you? Otherwise, Leeds Rhinos could just put one on every seat at Headingley for any Super League match and then
well, that's what Rugby Union's done, it?
No, but
that's what the BBC.
No, it's not. But
it is.
But seriously, I mean, in a very, very short space of time, the Women's Super League has really, burgeoned and blossomed and bloomed, hasn't it?
And has
very, very
massive
quickly, massive potential. So, on a serious note, never mind the Rugby Union gate thing, but seriously, it's got massive potential, as you say, and
when you
really need to get hold of the game and
give it some
oomph.
as well.
When you get games like Castleford and Leeds and Wigan and St Helens, you've got the best of both worlds because you've got that already intense rivalry to build on the back of. But the other thing that we keep saying every time we talk about the women's game is the quality is good. Right. You couldn't do this if the quality wasn't good.
As RSW, the cup final last year was excellent, wasn't it? It was a great match, really,
fantastic.
Great stuff. So.
Obviously, I didn't see St Helens versus Catalans, and I don't know how good Matty Costello's performance was, but he wasn't the player of the week this week. It was Rhiannon Marshall. She was absolutely superb
against her former club.
Destroyed the Rhinos yesterday, did Rhiannon Marshall. I think she scored 2, created the other tries for Cass. They were superb. And speaking to the coach afterwards, they were nervous because of the crowd they were playing in front of. But it was a good game. And
in many ways, it's a shame that there's so many games challenging to be something to do either curtain raiser or the curtain closer at the Challenge Cup
which
final.
is what St Helens did yesterday. They had their women's game after the men's game.
Yeah,
so they had a triple header.
Yeah, Rugby Union do it. They have the England Roses Rugby Union game after the main men's 15, and that works quite well. But it's a shame that you couldn't play the women's Challenge Cup final before or after the actual Challenge Cup final, but of course you got the 1895
Schoolboys.
Mega Cup and the Schoolboys as well. So you can't play 4, 5, 6 games, can you? But the Challenge Cup. Why can't I say about the Women's Challenge Cup? Why haven't they got a replica of the Challenge Cup?
Because the cup is dreadful. The trophy.
Yeah, but I didn't understand that. You know.
Well,
make it into.
You'll know better than me. There were the.
It's only a minor thing. But
PFA awards last night,
right.
and the men and the women got exactly the same trophy.
They should do.
I think they do that in the other darts, not the proper darts that we like, but the other darts.
The BDO darts. Yeah.
That was our women's rugby league roundup there. But the thing that's amusing though is in the first week there was lots of media coverage. It was on the BBC Sport website, the results and everything. We're 3 weeks into the season.
Leeds and Wigan next as well.
It
Repeating
is
the
at
grand
Wigan,
final.
2 weeks time.
Yeah.
Courtney Hill was very excited to have a week off next week to rest up her busted eye.
I think Phil's right. I mean, the more times that they can dovetail it with the men's fixture, the more publicity you're going to get, and you're going to get, just by definition, more people watching it, and then they watch it and they think, I'll go back and watch it the next week. Or where are they playing next week?
And it's like
okay, it's on Sunday this week, and it's away at Cass. Or whatever, but I'll go. That's what you need.
But it's like what we said also about women's football.
Yeah.
That now there are recognisable teams playing.
Yeah.
Nobody is talking about the standard of the games.
No.
But nobody is saying that there are thousands of people watching them. I think the average crowd at a women's Super League game is about 2,000.
But is that women's football Super League?
Yeah.
See, this is the
I
Robert
think
Elson.
it's lower than that. I think it's in the.
But they've just had a £10 million cash injection by a major multinational bank, and surely we should be doing the same.
The obvious question is, why did Barry Hearn offer 2 women places in the William Hill World Darts Championship?
It was suggested by the broadcaster. Was the main reason.
The problem is in the paper, and this is Phil's bugbear. Question marks as to who scored tries.
You can't do it.
No, it's got to be done properly. But look, you're right about the sponsorship, because the fact is that women's sport opens a sport up to a whole new dynamic of sponsors, isn't it? There's all sorts. It's different sponsors, different products, and different sponsors, and that obviously they're targeting that sponsorship at. Young women, or women, the female audience, and that's completely different from what you'd be targeting with the men's.
Beer and Skittles.
That's right. And so it's any sport worth its salt now is really looking to promote the women's game and move it forward. And Rugby League has done well in that regard, but it needs to. Really
if you're going to rebrand,
and
I know we're sort of saying how is it going to, you have to include the element of the women's game.
Absolutely right.
Well, this is where you've got the interesting thing coming up at the weekend, where it's the Women's FA Cup final, West Ham are in it, and the Premier League, who don't control women's football, aren't allowing West Ham to move their kick-off so people can go to both games.
Yeah.
Because that's another thing where the IFL and the Super League need to work out what they're doing on this one.
Yeah, definitely.
And the good news is, if you enjoyed our Women's Rugby League show the other week, which I badly titled the Women's Special because I shouldn't have called it that, there will be another one coming up in a couple of weeks' time, fingers crossed.
Good man.
So now I've had to say that, I have to do it, and we are doing it, which is good. I've already got one guest lined up, so if you want to come on the show, get in touch. What else has happened? Because I didn't go to a game this weekend, there was only Wigan and Cass on
you went to a women's game.
The game in the men's Super League. Because there was only Wigan Cass on TV, which I have to say I fell asleep and missed most of it, which I don't think I missed much. Is there anything else in Super League this week that we have missed? And should we talk about the Championship now? And we've spoken about Toronto and the excitement of their 52-10 win over Swinton. By the way, what's happening with the mascots? What was happening there? They got this new one, and then they've got the old one back, who was wearing last year's kit, which is a bit bad. Kind of very bush league, that.
Would you be worried if you were Huddersfield? Because we haven't really talked about that. Well, only just beat London on Easter. Didn't play well against Leeds on Good Friday, in the first half particularly. Just pulled out a win over London in the last minute on Easter Monday and capitulated in the second half at Warrington.
Well, what do you expect them to be doing?
I don't know. I'm just saying. We haven't spoken about Huddersfield.
Well,
if you were a die-hard Huddersfield fan, would you be worried about the way they're playing at the moment?
I'd expect Huddersfield to finish somewhere between 2/3 of the way down and 11th, wouldn't you? Sorry.
Well, we all know, the impression what he made last year when he came in there, but that was always going to come to an end, wasn't it? And now I think he's realised the players what he's got. Again, they're just not consistent enough week in and week out to play to the level what he anticipates from there, and they are where they are because that's what sort of team they've got. They're totally lacking consistency, and quite simply, they're not good enough, and they're not going to make the 5. Nowhere near.
I mean,
the
they've lost a lot of their spine, particularly Ryan Hinchcliffe, whose retirement probably wasn't made enough of, because I think he was integral to that team. Obviously, they decided that Danny Bruff's time had come to an end. They decided to sell or swap Jordan Rankin just before the season started. Those are 3 players that are going to play in the spine of your team. It's a dangerous thing to do, isn't it?
Well, it is, and it's backfired. Simple as that. It's backfired, hasn't it? You know, because them 3 players were certainly a massive part of Wilford last year when he went on that great run and got the Giants where they got to. But you can't afford to lose quality players like that and not replace them. And this is the reason why they're in the league position. And they're not going to get anywhere near the 5. They're not.
I mean, look, the team that can, and this has been happening for 2 or 3 seasons now, and so kudos again to get Carter, is Wakefield again continuing to spend lowish wage bill and still up there. I know they lost at the weekend, but here's another thing. You know, talking about ask the Castleford Tiger supporters how many players Wakefield are missing at the moment.
Well,
Wakefield, right? Yeah, no, but you know. That's just the way it is, and they've actually got their best players missing. They've got Turbo Tom Johnston.
Michael reckoned
missing.
They had 75%.
Notice the nicknames. I'm trying to
75% of their salary cap.
Don't give the players an idea, because Dave Fafita's already signed his own T-shirt.
What he should do, he should be doing marvellous. Yeah, big bopper. Yeah, eats fries, assists tries, magnificent. Right, so they've got Turbo Tom Johnston missing. They've got Big Bill Tupou missing. They've got Danny Brough. They've got
we don't nickname Danny Brough.
They've got Milky Miller, the Milky Bar Kid. So there's 4 of their best players. You know, I know it's not Fafita's obviously a superstar.
Matty Ashurst,
who
is one of their best heroes.
So there's 5 of their best players, and yet they're still going out and getting results on a fairly regular basis. It's no good whinging; they're just getting on with it.
Exactly. But also as well, let's look further down the league season. Let's just say that this league table here now, that finishes the top 5, and everybody has the squad. Everybody's back playing.
Right.
I reckon Wakefield with the side what they've got on an 80-minute performances. I reckon they could give. I reckon they are the team to give a shake up for St Helens and Warrington.
There was
the team that nobody will want to play in the playoffs.
Yeah, no,
I
think Wakefield are the team to give it a shake up if everybody's got the best players.
You've gone wrong here, because there was that theory espoused on social media the week that Wakefield, big game bottlers, don't win close games, apart from Leeds the other week. They won that one.
What about Catalan? Still unconvinced?
Yeah, what about them? I'm not having them.
Because again, we were all saying at the start of the season, with the players that they've signed, they should be in the top 5.
Exactly.
And I mean, they're on the edge of the top 5, but their away performances, even though Steve McNamara says he's not worried, they're not convincing.
No, they're not at all. And, you know, that's why it'll always be the same. And I don't get it, because they'll always travel the night before, and they'll give themselves plenty of time. They'll give themselves good preparation.
Well, they're here for 2 weeks. They're here for they've got a camp, haven't they? Because they've got 2 away games, Saints and Hull. Yeah. So they're actually staying over here.
Any league with a playoff system enables you to mask all sorts of deficiencies by winning a couple of playoff games, doesn't it? You know, when back in your
having all your players fit,
you have to play week out.
And you've got to play well to win from outside of the top 2.
Of course you have, but if
you get the right players back.
No. Yeah, but what I'm saying
is, I'm not going to use the word momentum going into the playoffs.
What I'm saying is, one of the teams that finishes 3rd, 4th or 5th will get within 80 minutes of the grand final.
Catalan did 1 year from 8th.
Yeah, they lost their leads.
Yeah,
didn't they?
Yeah.
Thanks.
When Leeds picked him in the
we'll bring back Club
Call.
We could rebrand Super League by bringing in Club Call.
There's Eddie at whatever ground, and here's Tony Smith comes out and says, "Yeah, them." It's great that. Thanks to everyone who's made us the 62nd most listened to podcast on Spotify in Peru this week.
Wow.
Thanks
Big
for
in
that.
Peru.
Because I checked my emails, because the Steve Prescott Man of Steel votes are in. This goes straight to my spam these days, which is
When's
quite
this? This week?
This is this week's.
It's good. I'm glad they moved it through to the Monday. What are the results?
Wigan versus Castleford, 3 points. Sam Powell, 2 points. Sean O'Loughlin, 1 point. Liam Watts.
Not Corey Aston, then, who got the broadcaster's man of the match.
London Broncos versus Salford Red Devils. Nice. Jackson Hastings 3.
I picked the Wigan Castle.
Did you?
What, the man of the match?
Yeah, I know I was a Man of Steel picker.
There you go. Oh yeah. But on the telly, they picked Corey Aston.
Corey Aston. Do me a favour.
The best
They
player in
did.
Super League these days.
You must have nipped out to the loo when the final whistle went, but the man of the match on Sky was Corey Aston. He got the silver salver
It's got to do with
from the
me.
Czech.
Nigel Wood's silver
Nothing
salver.
surprises me anymore.
Sam Howell was the official winner.
London Broncos, Jackson Hastings, Josh Jones, Luke Yates. Hull FC versus Wakefield, 3 points, Albert Kelly. 2
Rich
points.
vein of form, apparently.
Yeah, 2 points, Big Dave, Big Bopper. 1 point, Danny Holton.
Big Bopper still
Tackle-
leads the
tackle
way then.
52. No, it's, well, I'll tell you why in a moment, you see, you've gone early.
Oh,
Leeds
sorry.
Hull KR. This
Oh,
is
Blake Austin must lead the way.
3 points, Richie Myler. TV's Richie Myler. Congratulations, Mrs. Myler, doing the London Marathon. 2
Fair
points,
play.
Matt Parcell. 1 point, Brad Dwyer. 2 hookers there in the top 3. Saints versus Catalans, 3 points, the much maligned Danny Richardson.
Apparently
2 points,
played very well.
Yeah.
Aaron Smith. 1 point,
Yeah.
Jack Wellesby.
It's going to be a star. Going to be a star.
And Warrington versus Huddersfield, 3 points. Blake Austin, who is top, 3 points clear. 2 points, Chris Hill. 1 point, Darrell, new contract Clark.
Do you think I've been unlucky? I backed Danny Brough at 150 to 1. And of course, under this system where you don't play, silly system. Anyway, go on.
That's your money back. That's it. That is
Oh,
the,
so
that is the
So
top 3.
who's the top?
Oh, hang on. I've
I
got to go
backed
back
Austin.
into the
Hayes.
email.
Well,
Blake
Austin.
Austin,
Yep.
Big Dave, somebody else.
How many points has Austin got, Rick?
He's got 18.
Right.
Big Dave has got 15, along with, scrolls down to the bottom of the email, Jackson Hastings.
I'm on him as well.
James Rugby on 14, Liam Watts 12, on with Stephen Ratchford and Mark Sneed, and Lachlan Coote. Danny Brough 11, Johnny Lomax.
Yeah, but you see, but he had 11 a few, obviously, 3
He'll
weeks ago.
be picking up more.
I know,
don't
yeah, but
you?
he won't catch up. But
Well, 7 behind.
no, I know, but it's a bit. The odd thing, you could miss 4 or 5 or 6 games, which effectively eliminates you in that. But he could still be the best player in the competition.
Blake Austin will be rested for a couple
I'm
of
sure he
games.
will be, but I'm not. It's quite a good system. I'm not sure it's the best system. But anyway,
So
it is the system.
while you're here, if I was sat at home sending in a question, I'd be saying, now that Eddie's retired, and you can give him a eulogy should you wish.
Listen, Eddie's been the voice of rugby league right since the get-go in terms of Super League, hasn't it? It's
Why
30 years, more or
isn't
less.
our stud the voice of rugby league?
Darts.
Yeah, but
Hashtag stick to darts.
Yeah, but
Hashtag stick to darts. Hashtag stick to darts.
we're not going to see you.
Hashtag you beginning to commentary. You should be the
Scotty said
Very
hashtag.
kind of you to ask.
Now Scotty said the word hashtag, that's it. That's the end of everything.
He's no idea what it means.
I haven't got a clue what it means. What does it mean? What does you beginnings mean?
Well,
What does you beginnings mean?
Well,
But
No, well,
would you like
the
to?
The darts, obviously, the darts is the start of the Premier League darts season virtually coincides with the start of the Super League season. That runs for 17 weeks, so that's Thursday nights, obviously.
Yeah,
so,
but there's still Friday Rugby League,
there is still Friday Rugby League, yeah. So,
and we expect to see or hear your dulcet tones.
I don't know. Someone would have to ask me first. I just turn up. My strategy with darts is just keep turning up and talking about darts until someone says, don't come
when
back.
does the Sky Dart season
The
finish?
Sky Dart season. Well,
Never finishes,
the
does it?
Premier League, no, doesn't. The Premier League season finishes on middle of May,
So you could.
and then but then there's a World Cup in Germany in June. That's for a weekend, and then the World Match Play in Blackpool is for 9 days in July. And then
so there
it
are
runs
some gaps
through-
in your calendar.
There's some gaps, yeah. But
Will you be
I don't know
hopping on a
what's
flight
happening.
to Barcelona? Are you excited about Wigan playing Catalan at the Camp Nou?
I've been to the Camp Nou to watch Barcelona play. I think it was Girona or someone when they won 1-0 last year.
Big local
I was up
derby.
in the gods.
Well, get a bigger crowd.
So it's a long way up there. We got to the top of there, a long way up there.
I mean, the good thing about
I had
that
to
is
text someone to find out who'd scored at the other end. Because I knew it had gone in the net, but I had no idea.
There's only Messi scored, isn't there?
No, it wasn't him that match. Actually, he didn't score. I'd have recognised him. Listen.
would you go?
I was gonna say,
Talking
we're
of
gonna-
events,
we're
if
gonna
you've
got
got a spare space in your calendar.
I've been there, so if I hadn't been to Barcelona, I might go. But I've been there for my
We're going to
sort of
got a
tourist
special
trip.
special training kit for that one. Catalans have got a special kit, so there's another one for you.
Word is that it will break the Super League record for
That's good, then,
a
isn't
crowd
it?
as well.
That's
which
good.
is
That's
excellent.
another tick on Robert Elton's manifesto.
Yeah.
isn't it?
Well, it's an enormous stadium, so they need. They're going to need a decent crowd to.
Like when Leeds
make
played
it look
Stuttgart
good because
there.
yeah, well
30
Leeds played Stuttgart, there was
30,000.
less than 10,000 there, wasn't there?
Well, I reckon there'll be at least
92.
30.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Third
right.
full.
Look, if Barcelona Football Club offer you a chance to play at their ground at the new camp, you're not going to say no, are you?
No.
That would be.
And I think
nonsense.
without getting too political about it, the fact that the Catalan flag is much prized in that part of the world at the moment after the recent elections. I think the team is called Catalan. It represents the region. I think they'll get a lot there. It'd be
well,
great.
we're heading into the Summer Bash, which of course is smack bang in the middle of that game with Catalan.
And of course that weekend, Greece playing Norway
At
in
London, yeah, which I'm going to miss because when London play Wakefield, isn't it? So sadly, I'll be watching Barrow and Sheffield or something. Actually, they haven't announced. Have they announced all the things that are happening at the Bash? Because there's one fixture that appears that's on the Sunday that I don't think has been announced. So I don't know if we're allowed to say it or not because it's not been announced.
Come on.
But it's on the list. It's on the accreditation list when you apply to the RFL. There's like a women's Origin game between Yorkshire and Lancashire, but I don't know if anyone knows it exists. And
Do the players know?
Because they told us the other week.
Oh, that'd be
when
handy.
they came in.
That'd be handy.
They've scheduled it. This is great, right? So the last game on Saturday is Halifax versus Bradford at 8 o'clock. So finish about 9:30, 10 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
The women's
Straight
Origin
to
game.
the Scarborough.
Yeah, women's Origin game.
17 pints.
Women's Origin game. Come back 10:45 Sunday morning.
Well, that's all right. Go straight through. Big breakfast and back in.
I'm just going to bin off Halifax Bradford. I don't know watch Bradford, do I? Jeez. I know Bradford fans want us to talk about them. Your chairman needs to just shut up. As simple as that. Moaning about
Don't talk about a man who's got hospitality there.
Moaning about I'm not talking about Nigel. I'm moaning about Catalans taking money out of Super League when Bradford Bulls went bust and took money from the taxpayer and local businesses. And I'm not saying Bradford are the only club to have done so, but come on, have some humility. This is why people don't like you. You realise that. Lee Centurions. They didn't have Danny Richardson this week, but they've got Ryan Briley back. The missing man of Toronto. All the Toronto fans are upset, but he's back, and he's back leading Lee to victory over Batley.
I like what Lee are doing. I think since they, again, under somebody we know well, Chairman Mike Latham, realised that they also had to cut their cloth according to their means to get people who have a passion for the club back. It can only be good for them. Nobody's talking about them this year, and yet they're in the top 5. If the league finished today, they'd be in the playoffs. I think that's a remarkable turnaround.
Is that likely to happen?
From a club, I wouldn't
The
be
league
surprised.
finished today, I mean.
Could be a rebrand. Finish today and then a rebrand.
Get Ralph on the phone. Ralph,
Stop the race.
just finish it now. Yeah.
I think Lee may well end up in the position they're in at the moment, and that would be fantastic.
Let me ask you this: where's the final of this event taking place?
Of what, the championship?
Yeah.
In the middle
Headingley.
of the Atlantic Ocean.
Is it Headingley? Right.
Oh.
Okay. Right. So
Or
regardless of
Emerald
who's in it, it will be a Headingley.
Emerald Head.
Right. Emerald. Right. Okay. Right.
I don't know if that's been.
You're on point.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I
I know
may
the
have
women's
missed
grand
it.
finals though.
I may have
isn't it?
missed
I know
it.
that.
I don't know.
Don't May the 16th, Thursday night, Leeds and Cass on Sky Sports, the opening of the stadium.
Oh yes, the new North Stand.
Mm.
Right. Good. Yeah. Yes. I've not been to Headingley since its reconstruction, if you call it that.
Think
But
you'll be impressed.
Yes. I was going to say I've had people who have been absolutely
Gary will
eulogising,
tell-
saying it's the most superb facility
Gary will
they've
tell
ever
you.
seen in their lives.
What's that?
New
The
Headingley.
Headingley facilities.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so I've had
Oh.
people saying it's the best thing they've ever seen, and
Yeah.
Lovely
really
press.
is absolutely 5-star, and then some on top.
Yeah, I was.
Were you being wined and dined there, Scotty?
No, not as yet. But I was.
It will happen.
I was doing I did a dinner in Steeton on Friday night,
Right.
and the gentleman who did all the shop fitting there and all the
Right.
joining work, and he showed me the pictures. It's
Right, yes,
absolutely amazing.
Superb.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
It's like a top class casino.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Sensational. Yeah.
But presumably without the roulette wheel.
Well, to be honest,
I think
it's
if you want to-
45
no,
million
that's
quid.
on
You
the
know,
big
so you
screen.
expect it to be
Yeah.
quality, don't you? To be honest.
Well, you do expect
You
it.
expect
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Trying to save you money.
It
on that.
sets a standard. That is
Good.
for
Yeah,
sure.
good. Good for Leeds. Yeah.
What are they going to have there in the winter though? Now there's no, or might be no.
Oh, I think
Other
the
ones.
plan is they'll still be there.
Graham. Oh right. So all these people are getting upset about that. Graham's upset because there's no cheerleaders anymore at Leeds. But there was a reason for that, wasn't there? So.
They asked the fans. The fans said it's not the kind of thing that we need.
Yeah. It's strange what the fans like and what they don't like. Elsewhere in the Championship,
They like quality good rugby.
they like quality rugby league. so-
Wingers scoring tries always
Yeah.
goes down well.
Yeah.
Nice
Hats
ground.
off, by the way, to Ash Hambley, who I think is most underrated at the moment. 12 tries already this season, playing superb.
Steve says nice ground shame about the team. Come on, Steve, don't say that. I don't want to be banned from Headingley. He says ha 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 with a knowing wink. Halifax, despite not having a coach, beat Sheffield 32-24. We mentioned
Good
Toulouse
result.
earlier.
That's
I tell you what is concerning at the moment is Widnes Vikings, 2 defeats in a row, losing on Good Friday, on Easter
it
Monday
3 out
rather
of
to
4?
York. Was it 3 out of 4? Something like I'm just reading what's on the paper.
think
The last
it
2
is.
games, and they lost to Dewsbury with Liam Finn, who did nothing at Widnes last season, and pops it with a drop goal. And Dewsbury beat Widnes 25-24. Great result for Dewsbury.
I think Finn said he was booed for 75 minutes, so he thought he better do something and just won the game.
Fair enough.
Can't do more than that.
Well done, Liam.
You've got allegiance to Widnes.
Yeah, I used to watch them a lot. Yeah,
Are you
that's going back a few years.
saddened by the demise
I mean,
of the club that you fell in love with at Norton
Well,
Park?
Norton Park, what marvellous ground that was.
These are the days of Dougie Lawson.
Cage tunnel. You know,
Ever intimidated at Norton
yeah,
Park?
yeah.
I
Norton
can
Park?
remember it was my second game at Norton Park. I played my first game against Warrington, and
Yeah.
Rollins Wayne, absolutely, the Great Britain Centre,
Right.
do 24-8, absolutely
Yeah.
knocked hell at me. And then my second game was at Norton Park, and I was up against Syracuse.
Right.
And
Took no prisoners.
Exactly the same.
Yeah.
Just literally part of it. But yeah, the great thing about Norton Park, going through that meshing from there, but the fans were literally could just touch the fans.
Yeah.
I would imagine around about 3 yards away from the touchline.
Yeah.
Respectable, but it's a great
Yeah.
atmosphere, and
Very intimidating.
They were the Cup King, but they did play the game in the right way as well. You know, when you look at
I
young Gregory, young Lyon,
Yeah.
and Tony Myler, and Mike and these sort of fellas. you
Yeah,
know.
I started
Yeah.
watching slightly after that when Dougie Lawton was in charge, and
Move on,
Fire
move
and
on,
Davies,
Elwell.
Davies and
King
Devereux
Fowler.
and Tate and the
Moriarty.
Hume brothers, Kinkert, Sorensen,
Sadly, there's no
Phil
pictures
McKenzie.
in this Martin Fire
Chariots
book.
off you.
But I picked up chapter 9 and we've just gone to this. How good is a fire, it says, or Orfeo, as you say. As soon as Martin Fire began to make an impact in rugby league and other clubs realised that Doug Lawton had unearthed a rare talent which got next to nothing, the hunt was on for the new Martin Fire. They came from everywhere. Kenya, brackets, Eddie Rombo.
Yeah.
A Fire's old
Eddie.
school, brackets, Bright Sodgy. Broughton Park, brackets, Bremark Kebby.
Widnes,
Yeah.
And were often billed as even faster than Martin Fire.
Yeah.
But they weren't.
That's why,
Martin Fire.
Kevin Penny in
That's
later
why.
years.
That's why we signed Rombo, because Rombo trialled for Leeds at the Wigan Sevens.
He did.
Yeah.
And,
Played well in that Wigan
and
Sevens.
and that idiot Lawn. You know, I've just unearthed. I've just
That
seen.
idiot
I've
Lawton.
just seen the next fire. What did we go and do? Oh, it's child footage. We better sign him. Oh, Jesus Christ! Absolute crap. Absolute gab.
People love it when we bring out the old faithfuls.
They love him at
Lawton,
Dewsbury.
Rombo.
Love who?
Yeah, they all love it.
Eddie.
Really?
Hmm?
All right.
Cult figure at Dewsbury.
Regan Grace is the newer Fire, says Mick.
It's quick.
I don't
you
think
go.
so. I don't think so.
They'll never be. They'll never be a man.
I'll never be another Martin Fire, I can reassure you. You know what makes me laugh when people say about Martin when he couldn't defend? Couldn't defend.
He's got 60 tries.
When he gets 10 in a game, he doesn't need to defend.
Martin scored tries nobody else would do because he just had sheer pace. But he didn't wait for the ball. He had that vision awareness to go looking for the ball.
That's right.
That's what made him a special player.
Yeah.
He wanted to be involved.
That's right,
in-
yeah. The game
was
was
quality.
the game had less structure though. Scully.
Yeah, well, exactly.
He could wander around the
Yeah, just
field,
wander
like,
around.
you know, thinking there might be a break over there, and I'll wander.
Oh,
Nowadays, if the left winger ended up in the right centre now, they'd be all back with the Shepherd's
Also,
crook.
as
It
well,
weren't like that, did it?
the way that Wigan's playing. Could you see Martin Fire being used as a battering ram?
That's what I'm saying.
I know what Martin would do.
The game.
Yeah, meters after contact to fire. I don't think so.
But the great thing as well with Martin, he had that enough pace where if he was hanging around there and then he realised the ball's going to move to the left hand side,
Yeah.
he had enough pace to get round there and get on end up bleeding things. You know what I mean? But
And he had
wasn't just
half
speed, it
backs
was
who
his
could
vision and his awareness
recognise that
for
they
you.
needed to get the ball to him because he was in an unconventional position.
Iconic haircut. as well.
When you were watching Widnes, Darren Wright was
Yeah,
he?
he's fine. Yeah, Courier and Wright were centres. Yeah.
And Tony Myler,
My brilliant one.
The-
So the vision of passing.
the
was
two
another, yeah.
best
We
players
sound like a load of
who
old
were
fogies,
just
this guy.
Tony would have been the
tragically
best stand-up.
injured. Yeah.
He kept
Tony would have
breaking
been
his arm, and
he would have been the best stand-up.
Yeah,
And Darren Wright wouldn't have been far off being one of our best ever
Right,
centres.
right was good. They're a brilliant team, but I mean the irony is there's a certain similarity with what's happened now because they were overspending. They were constantly spending well beyond their means on that glamorous team for the talented players. And eventually that caught up with Widnes then. That's why they had to sell Martin.
That wasn't a
and
trait
Jonathan
of
Davies
Mr.
to Warrington.
It wasn't a trait of Mr. Lawton's wherever he went, was it?
Well,
Didn't the
spent a
same
lot of money on
thing?
players.
Didn't the same thing
well,
happen at
You
Leeds?
can't blame the coach if the director
No,
signed the
of
checks,
course.
can you?
The Harry Redknapp of rugby league. Is that
You
what
know,
we're saying?
They,
Got slightly more successful in terms of trophies.
What did he bring out a book about Jam Roly Poly?
yeah.
Well, I've got it. Connie's a Widnes fan, And according to Backchat, never heard of it, the final won't be played at Headingley.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know. We don't know. There you go. Only joking. Only joking.
No, it came tumbling down at Widnes before, didn't it? You know, that's why a lot of the players ended up scattered around the league, didn't they?
But also, when you looked at that Widnes side, the forward pack were great ball skills. Derek Pike, the hooker. You had Mackenzie Hooker, Sorensen, but he had great ball skills. They all had great ball skills as well.
They're good. Yeah. Oh, they signed Les Halliday from Halifax.
Yeah, Les Halliday. He was quality looks for goal. Yeah, he was. Yeah. A very well balanced side.
Yeah, they were a good side. Look, at least the current Widnes have got themselves back in the game, as it were, you know, because they could have been out of the game, you know, and sunk to the foot and having to do a Bradford, couldn't they? So they kept themselves head above water, but that's about all they're going to do.
Any danger of relegation?
No, because any outcome possible, but I mean, they'll win more than half their matches, won't they? So even if you take the 12 off, I mean, the record on the field is okay, isn't it? 7 wins and 4 losses.
A big win for Dewsbury, though, this week.
That's a big win for Dewsbury. I mean, Widnes' sole ambition this season is to just get through the season and
finish third from bottom.
Well, that's good enough, isn't it? I think they'll be a bit higher than that, won't they? They'll probably end up winning somewhere around 2/3 of their matches, so that'll be all right. Listen, they'll be happy with that because they've got through the season, haven't they? And they've now got to cut their cloth accordingly. They've got to realise how much money
and they've got a lot of good young kids.
Yes,
and kids don't win every week because they need to get the experience of that grind of playing week in, week out.
Ian says Lawton was a visionary. Robert says Les Holiday destroyed Leeds in the cup semi. Scully will remember. Bet Phil will as well.
I do. I do. Thanks for reminding me.
Never too far away from Leeds in crisis. This is just what people forget. They've been crisis before.
Destroyed us twice.
Was that the game that Goldie was playing?
Yeah, the biggest 24-0 semi-final.
24-0 and then
the
39-4.
Regal Trophy. That was at Wigan.
Regal Trophy, but
39-4 was at Wigan.
Yeah, but then all the destroyed as well when Malcolm was in charge. Quarter-final at with 27,000 crowd.
Andrew Essinghausen's final
day. Were there, and they just literally absolutely battered us. Yeah. So, but yeah, Widnes have always done a good job on Leeds. Yeah.
So if the final's not played at Headingley in the Championship, I mean, they could always play at Bradford. If the ground's still owned by whoever,
as long as they're not in the final,
Rico and Bradford
doesn't matter. League One. We need to talk about the result of the weekend, the result of the season, the result of the millennium, because London Scholars went to Hunslet and won.
Not just won, but thrashed them.
42-26. Led at half time 18-16. Full in front of 661 people. Neil Thorman 7 from 8 from the boot and scored a try. Welcome back, Chris Thorman, as well, by the way. 42-26. What a result for London Scholars. Proof that expansion may possibly work.
Yeah. But also, as I said to you, in that league, certainly in that league, the Championship will just tell you, but the League One, it doesn't matter who you're playing. If you don't bring your A game, you're going to get turned over. You are, because the players are all committed, and the ones at the lesser teams are even more committed from there, and they'll keep going for 80 minutes. It doesn't matter what the skill level they've got. They will. You give them a sniff, they will turn you over. That's exactly what the Scholars had yesterday. I would imagine Gary Thornton would have been absolutely furious because he's looking for consistency week in and week out. Hunslet, I know, coming from that area, they are desperate this year to get back into the Championship. So that really has rocked the boat.
And
really rocked the boat as that defeat.
Big 2 points to North Wales as well, winning 12-10 at Doncaster. Obviously got high hopes of their own in that division. And again, it's very tight there, isn't it? You've got Coventry and North Wales on 4, Workington and Doncaster on 6, Newcastle on 7, who obviously haven't had the greatest start to the season. Newcastle, an interesting situation there, because with the way things are going in, to mention the other code again, the Rugby Union Premiership, they that ground may own a Championship Rugby Union team and a Championship Rugby League team next season if everything went to plan for the Newcastle Thunder.
I mean, you've been a fan of giving West Wales a chance.
Come on, West Wales.
Not jumping on the bandwagon.
Yeah, however,
is it more of a worry that they lost 70-8 or that only 197 people were there to watch them?
I don't.
Or
who are those people? Who are those people? Why do they turn up? Maybe they're sporting. I don't know what the word is. I always get this wrong.
Tragic.
Is it sadist or masochist? Which one is it? It's one of those. Again, didn't do English well, as you can tell. I don't know why they turn up. What can we do? There's always been this team, hasn't there? Whether it's Highfield or Highfield, Runcorn, Highfield, Wigan Highfield, Springfield Borough. There's always one of these teams who Chorley Borough, Trafford Borough. I need to do that investigation. Mansfield Marksman, Kent Invicta, Southend Invicta, and now it is the West Wales Raiders who There was always one team.
Were we expecting more? Because they got an Australian
No,
coach
they haven't lost 500 yet,
They
have they?
re-recruited.
Well, if you wait long enough.
Who
What
realistically?
does that make us a recruiting Australian?
No,
it's
but
all about the players.
Realistically, who
Then
could they
he
beat?
bought some players in with him. They had quite a turnover of their squad. They were expecting
Well, we know Coventry.
better things.
Coventry probably are not too happy with only 2 wins from 6 or whatever, but they're possibly the only team who West Wales can beat. And if you had that match down, you'd have Coventry by about 30 or 40 points.
Well, the
wouldn't
question is how long you persist, isn't it? That's the key question, isn't it? Is there a limit of how long you'll persist? You will persist.
Maybe they're
forever
waiting
and a
to
day.
produce the next World Darts Grand Prix champion out of that. I don't know what's going to happen with West Wales, but
Good old Gerwin.
I like the
Yeah,
shirts.
nice.
They've got nice shirts. They're very bright, but
Well,
I don't know.
yes.
So now you're slightly disappointed that you haven't seen I mean, again,
What?
with 8 games minus 322 points difference.
they are going to go down in history, aren't they? They are possibly going to be the worst team in the history of rugby league.
Who? West Wales?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we don't want them to be that, but I got
No.
pulled up for calling
But what-
Theresa May the West Wales of Prime Ministers, but it's not my fault.
But what do we do as a sport? Is there anything you
Well, we're
can
not doing
do?
anything, are we? We're just letting them flounder at the bottom. And this is about development and stuff, isn't it? Do we care about rugby league in Wales?
Should do.
We should. Do we care though? Again, there are big opportunities, aren't they, in handling codes in Wales with the way things are going with the Pro 14 or whatever, and the
Haven't they lost one of their district teams?
franchise and districts and whatever. But
Why are
we
they?
doing anything?
Why are they in this 1895 Cup?
To
Because
get
they
to
entered
Wembley.
it. Yeah, they entered it. Because Coventry aren't in it, are they? And
London
the
Scholars aren't in it,
yeah.
which is a shame when the final ends up
Yeah.
at Wembley.
Why are they in it?
Because they didn't want to be in it.
Why not?
Is it some midweek games or something? Even though this week's games are on a
In the
weekend.
weekend.
Yeah,
I
but,
know,
but
yeah, but-
future rounds are midweek games, and they didn't think it was economically viable.
But again, the 1895 Cup is an aftermath, a sop to championship teams.
Well, no, it's a good idea.
It is, but the way it's been influenced.
We've been banging on about this for years, that it's a good idea, but you've got to get it right. You've got to get it right, and you've got to make it right. There are successful lower league cup competitions in all sorts of sports.
Well,
aren't there? But
didn't
you've
the
got to get
Checker
it
try
done
just
well.
get
yeah.
70,000 people? at
Yeah,
Wembley?
it did, but of course it was a season where it was a little bit of a freak circumstance where you had literally the two
Best
biggest
supported
teams
clubs,
outside, or certainly two of them. I mean, because Barnsley might have had something to say if they got into it. But Sunderland, obviously, with an enormous fan base where they're against Portsmouth. But what a magnificent occasion for the teams outside the top 2 divisions of football. So we've got to get it right. I think it's a good idea. The debate of whether you play after the Challenge Cup final or before the Challenge Cup final, of course, is a slightly cloudy issue, which is not that easy to solve. But I definitely think it's the right idea because the teams in that 1895 Cup, if you took all the teams outside the Super League, I mean, you could get quite a really tasty
But
match.
does
couldn't
it-
you?
does
if
it
you were to get
compromise-
Bradford versus Lee, for example,
Yeah,
Bradford
absolutely.
Halifax or Featherstone versus.
Halifax.
But
But does that compromise their participation in the full Challenge Cup?
I don't think it does because it doesn't compromise the participation in the FA Cup, does it? Sunderland still playing the FA Cup. What's the problem?
Well,
I mean, what is the problem?
there is a chance that Sunderland could win the FA Cup.
Well, yes, as indeed they did in
As-
1973.
No, but I mean, was it Bradford City went very close one year?
That was
In
the
the
League
League
Cup.
Cup.
That was the League Cup. They got to the final.
But
that's all right.
Millwall have been to the final.
They
in
have
the FA
indeed.
Cup.
Yes.
So
and Sunderland is a lower
there
league
are
team again.
still opportunities for clubs who are not the Big Six.
Well, if Toronto
To
had
get
been
to the
permitted to
final.
enter the
No, but what
Challenge
I'm
Cup-
saying is that doesn't happen in rugby league. So
Well, it could
for-
happen.
No, I don't.
Oh,
think
no,
it could.
Kingston Rovers got to the semi-final not long ago. They got beaten 50, didn't they? By Saints.
Leeds beating 50.
But that was in the final.
Yeah, but they were a Super League team then.
but
But
I-
they got as a non-Super League team. They got to the semi-final. They got smashed
I'm
by
just
Saints.
not sure what the Challenge Cup has done for Workington, for example. Going to Headingley in a game that they were never going to win, got beaten by 70
Well, yeah,
odd
obviously
points.
football's a different game. It's low, like Leeds won at Man United, didn't they? When
Yeah.
Leeds were outside the
Yeah.
first
So I know we're not comparing
No,
with
it's
the
different.
respective sports,
Well, it's
but
easier to win a
the
football game,
likelihood is that a Championship and League One club is not going to get the Challenge Cup
Right.
final. That two of them are obviously going to get to the 1895
Yeah.
Cup final. So what's their incentive for playing in the Challenge Cup when the outcome could be
I
the
see.
same?
Right.
But they would get to Wembley, but they only need to beat 3 teams who are of a comparable
Right,
standard
okay.
in their own cup.
Yeah, but in saying that,
Have we diminished the Challenge Cup by
I don't
bringing in
think,
the
I don't think so.
1895
Because
Cup?
look, Bradford versus Leeds in the Challenge Cup. That's not
the biggest ever game in biggest rivalry.
How many do you think they'll get for that? How many people do you think?
25,000. Somewhere between 20 and 25,000.
200,000 people will be there.
You did that without laughing.
Have you ever done that joke though? Right, how long have we got? I once did this to John Keir. Right, I could do it again with John Keir, but he wouldn't fall for it again. Right, so Bradford v Leeds. You say how many think they get there, and I say somewhere between 20 and 25,000. You think I'm a lunatic, right? And I say, well, I'll bet you some sum of money that I'm right, between 20 and 25,000. You think it's Christmas come at once and want to get as much as you can on the bet. And I did this with John Keir about some game. I think it was the Catalans or somebody. And he said, right, you're on. Anyway, I said, right, do you want to pay me now, John, or wait for the attendance to be officially announced? He said, what are you talking about? I said, I bet you that the attendance of Bradford v Leeds will be between 20 2-0 and 25,000.
Which indeed
25,000.
Yes.
You've lost. He goes, you've stuffed me deliberately. I said, you just didn't listen.
So I think you're right. It will be.
But no, seriously. That's a good question. I mean, you'd really hope that it would be. It's a great question because it should be a good attendance.
But the reason I ask
is
if you were to play Bradford against Halifax in the semi-final of the 1895 Cup, with the prospect of one of those teams playing at Wembley, would the attendance be higher than Bradford against Leeds in the Challenge Cup?
It's a great question. Well, the semi-final of the 1895 Cup, are they going to be in a double header or what's happening? Do we know that? Or is it on the ground of one of the teams, drawn out?
Well,
so this is the thing. This is my point.
They may have announced it, but I haven't heard.
This is the thing. I mean, Bradford v Leeds in the Challenge Cup. I mean, if you've gone back.
Oh, absolutely.
If you've gone back to the, when you were playing, you wouldn't have got in, would you? No. I mean, they've been hanging off those floodlights to watch the game, wouldn't they? The big Challenge Cup time back then, I mean, those days have gone, unfortunately.
I can remember games that you played in the Yorkshire Cup, so were there 18,000?
The proper Yorkshire Cup.
Yeah.
The real Yorkshire
Cup. Yeah, the real Yorkshire Cup. Look, I don't know. Can they get 10? Could they get 10,000? Is that pie in the sky?
You'd hope so.
Have you got a box? Are you going, Scotty?
I reckon there'll be no more than 7.
But I mean, again, irrespective of who the teams are, do you think that there is there is a feeling amongst the fans of Bradford that this is a game they can win?
Well, they ought to be. I mean, Leeds might be playing better then, but I mean, Leeds are vulnerable to anybody. Leeds have lost to virtually everybody. They lost to London at home.
They did.
Right, but I mean, if you're Bradford and you're up in the top 3 or 4 in the Championship, and you don't think that you've got a hope against Leeds, a team that lost to London at home, then really you've got no business playing the match.
What do you think the fans think?
Well, I think you think they can turn them over, and I think if they did turn them over, it'd be like the great. I mean, Bradford fans should be turning up at that game thinking this is like a shot at redemption. We've had nothing really over years upon years of drudgery,
even though it's a different Bradford.
Garbage. Even though it's a different Bradford. A completely new club. And this is the first game the first big game for this new club, right? But they should be thinking this is a real chance for at long last to have something to go down to Oddsall, and if only we could beat Leeds. I mean that feel like
will be fine.
Yeah, that would feel like the greatest thing that had happened in decades, wouldn't it? I mean, so that really they ought to be down there getting right behind them, and can't they nick something in that game?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Is it impossible?
100%.
Impossible.
But do you think there's enough Bradford fans genuinely believe that?
If I was a Bradford supporter, I would definitely go and watch that game.
20 to £25 to go and watch.
Yeah, I'd pay to watch that game if I was a Bradford supporter, because I think this is a chance. These are the games they have actually wanted to play ever since they've been binned out of Super League, isn't it?
Shame for them that they're in Toronto the week before.
Well, they could send the reserves out there and concede
that. But that's an important game.
Mr. Radford.
If I were Bradford Bulls, I'd be asking Bradford City how they can sell so many season tickets, despite the fact they are dreadfully run at the moment.
That's the kind of game you'd want hospitality at, I think.
Well, Bradford versus Leeds?
Yeah.
I think it's a great game.
I've got it.
Oh,
there you go.
Would you really?
Just waiting for that.
Well,
I've got it sorted.
This is a group thing, is it? No one told me. No one told me.
I've not told the lads.
What's going on?
I'm very one-sided.
Come on.
I'm not afraid to say this. I'll be watching the telly next Saturday afternoon, is it? I'll be watching the telly and I'll be finding some kind of blue and amber stuff to wear, and up Leeds absolutely stuff them.
We'll go to the game.
You won't be wearing any blue and amber stuff, Mr. Shaw, right?
No, tie up
Leeds Wakefield fan. You're not going to be wearing blue.
No, I don't like Bradford.
Why don't you?
Arrogance. Misplaced arrogance. Wonder who gets the bigger gate, asked Genghis. Toronto versus Bulls or Bulls versus Leeds?
Good question.
Very good question.
Well, the problem is, Genghis, as you know, all the people in Toronto are cardboard and just there to drink beer.
Is that counting the big?
I don't have a problem. If you want to rebrand the sport, when the cameras panned round yesterday, and there clearly were a lot of people in that stadium, the demographic was different to most of the rugby league crowds that we see.
Good luck to them.
So
make it an event. Make it an event, and people will come. We need to attract more people.
They'll get 9,000 something for the game between Toronto and Bradford, won't they?
9 and 9,000.
You'd hope they'd get at least as many as they did for Swinton.
We've got to look outside of rugby league people to watch rugby league, because there aren't enough rugby league people. Look at the crowds in League One and the traditional clubs. There aren't enough people.
Why weren't Toronto permitted to be in the 1895 Cup? Are they in the 1895 Cup?
No.
Right.
No. Because they have to pay.
No, funnily enough, for Toulouse.
Right, but why not? Because that's got nothing to do with the gate.
As I say, as you quite rightly point out, if you're going to do something, do it properly. So if you're opening it to the teams from the Championship and League One, they've all got to be included.
I agree with you. They did. I mean, the
danger then would have been that if Toronto had been in the Challenge Cup as well, which they weren't allowed to do, they could have got to the two finals on the same day.
No, but they don't. Yeah, but what would happen there? You see, if you get to the semi-finals, they can play in both semi-finals, and if they get to the Challenge Cup final. If they get to both, all you've got to do is then play off between the two losing semi-finalists of the 1895.
I think they have to play both finals.
No, they don't need to.
They've got a squad. They'll play half of them in one and half in the other.
Scully, you've been quiet. We've been boring the viewers, apparently, according to Facebook. So, hello to Mark. The show is dying.
Okay.
Jill, who thinks the show's boring. Go off and watch something else. That's fine.
Yeah.
It's
not
obligatory.
Forced
to watch this program. I know this is kind of like the anti kind of thing in broadcasting, isn't it? But if you don't like the program, go listen to something else. You know, when I don't like something on the telly, I turn it over.
Yeah.
I actually think this is quite good. I'd be at home watching it.
Let's go. He's bored now, so Jill's off to go watch some paint drying. I think that's on Free Sport later on.
Pro celebrity paint
drying. Yeah. You've been studying the results from the last week. Is there actually anything that's happened on the field that we haven't spoken about that we need to speak about? Nothing much has happened.
There's not really anything really exciting, to be honest with you, if I'm honest with you.
So this is the question then. Are you now in the camp that says we need to drop one of the Easter fixtures? Is it compromising the quality?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
And the number of injuries that every team has got means that we have to have a realisation that everything is compromised.
Right. They can stop the Easter fixtures could be stopped like that overnight for next season if you've got a players' union, because the players' union say, right, this is what's going to happen. Have a meeting and just say, right, this is what's going to happen here. We're playing one game over Easter. If you don't like it, well, we're not going to play on Easter Monday. So just be aware that there won't be any players turning up for any match on Easter Monday. That's the end of it. Debate ends. As long as if you've got a strong players' union, that's what happens in the NFL, in the NRL, the NBA, the PFA. All these bodies just go, we're not doing it. I mean, you know, that's the end of it. So we'll have a debate, and then at the end we'll just say we're not doing it. So if the players just say we're not playing, that's the end of the argument. Now, if they're prepared to kowtow and capitulate at the drop of a hat all the time, then it will just carry on, because what you allow will continue. And that's why it's continued over and over again. And we keep having the same conversation every year.
But you've been a fan of, it doesn't matter about the number of games, it's all about, as a player, you go out there and do the best. Are you now coming round to the fact that we are compromising not just the players but the entertainment value with the second game at Easter? Because Michael Carter did last week on this programme, he said that he has actually changed his mind, that rather than have 75% of his team sat on the sideline, he'd drop a game.
Well, to be honest with you, since this debate started, I would say, you know, from my point of view, for the last 3 or 4 years I've been thinking, well, no, not really. But certainly from the last 3 years and what I've seen, the dross, and some of the dross on Easter Monday, and certainly this weekend, yeah, it's got to go. It's got to go because
what's the gate? What's the gate situation? There's great gates on Good Friday, isn't there?
Good Friday's all right.
There was no press release on Tuesday morning.
Right. So, but the gates were much, and I know that's something to do with who's playing at home. Exactly. Because obviously, if you've got Wigan at home and Hull at home, who else was at home? Leeds were at home. Wyre were at home, weren't they?
Yeah.
So all the best teams were at home, all the big teams, the big gates
and
were at home.
And Catalan could have been at home, and it would have been even more influential.
Right, exactly. So the Easter Monday, some of the better teams, the bigger teams were away from home, weren't they? So that affects it. But nevertheless, you know,
I don't think there's an economic argument.
There's not an economic argument.
And there's only one game on the telly on the Monday as well. It's not as if there was two.
And the other thing that was mentioned on social media, that of course, if you do insist on having a round of games on Easter Monday, you can't play again until Saturday. And,
so there's no rugby on the telly.
As you will know,
the
Thursday-Friday darts aside, there wasn't a huge amount of football being played. There was a window there for rugby league to have a major game, and we didn't.
Sandy's saying, are you telling me the rugby league players don't have a union? They do, but they probably just want more cheap coffee and Nando's than actually.
Nobody listens to it.
Right, this is the thing.
Nobody listens to it.
I don't know what's happening with the union with Mr. Carr. I've got no idea. But if you have a union, you have to get everyone signed up, and you have to be prepared, basically, to say we're not playing.
Exactly.
All right,
One out, all out.
You know, I mean, Clint Newton in the NRL, the Australian Players Union. And you know. I mean, if you remember, they just said we're not turning up at the Dally M Awards, and if that's happening, you know, Jonathan Thurston and Cam Smith were prepared to say we're not doing it. You know, these are big hitters, and when they start talking, people listen, and that's what Super League and Rugby League needs, isn't it? It needs the big hitters, which they had briefly with League 13, didn't they? With John Wilkin was involved,
Jamie
was involved, wasn't he? You know, but not enough of the players supported it. Well, if you don't support your union, you can't then complain when the union disappeared. You know, which is pretty basic stuff.
I just sometimes think the players aren't that bothered. They make a lot of noise on social media about this, that, and the other. You know, they're on social media money about referees, and I saw a player last week calling one a numpty.
Well,
and again,
fine for that.
why knowing that the RFL is pulling people up on this, I don't know.
Right.
But they're quick to moan, and I'm the worst person to say this, aren't there? Someone moaning on social media and then never does anything. But the players all moan on social media about this, that, and the other. Don't do anything. Yeah. So it's your own fault. I know we're not supposed to call out the players because they're, you know, warriors and all this and the other, but sometimes they need to be told, and they have to be in charge. Oh, got into my own rant now, but they're in charge of their own image.
Yeah,
it's all right. Robert Elson coming out and saying we need to promote this young, vibrant image of rugby league, but when the players come out and act like lads on social media and swear and this and that and the other,
quite right. I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, you're spot on. You're spot on.
This is the refreshing thing about going to the women's games, and unless he's not saying the women's game's perfect and this that and the other. Players actually speak eloquently about things.
Yeah.
They answer questions. And a lot of, you know, Scott will go back to his day where he hands his number out to every journalist here, there and everywhere to get his point across. No one says anything anymore. Yeah. And when they do say things, they say stupid things about referees. Anyway, prediction time, because everyone's annoyed and they've all gone off to watch Coronation Street or something.
Snooker.
Oh yeah, snooker's on. Forgot about the snooker. Go on, Ding. Elsewhere in the world of sports, it is the return of predictions, and Super League is back on Thursday night on the telly, and there'll be a massive crowd. You see, this is the thing someone pointed out, I think it was Andy L. Warrington.
Sorry about that.
Knock on. Andy L. Warrington fan said, Warrington are very smart. They pick and choose the games they market in the games they know they're going to get a small crowd, and they get in the scouts or whatever, and this, that, and the other.
What, Warrington?
Yeah.
Well, they marketed the game at home game against Wigan.
Well, they did that as well, that's true. Wigan versus London.
Nothing wrong with the Scouts.
Bad blood in that one, if you remember.
Yeah, Wigan versus London. This is the Ian Lenigan derby. They're playing for his trophy at the end of the game. It's on the telly. And Scully, Wigan versus London.
Yeah, they're on the slide out to London. And so even though Wigan aren't that good, to be honest with you, but you can't say anything. You can't say anything really, but a Wigan rout, to be honest with you, and I think this is going to be quite easy.
Routingtons.
So I'm going Wigan by 42.
I love it when I do enjoy reading Scully's predictions either in his column in the League Express or on Twitter, when he just like it's never something. Well, I mean sometimes it's some, like by 4 or something. But I love it when he sticks in like Casford by 62 or some ridiculous number.
You think Wigan are capable of scoring 42?
Well, they've got to do it, really.
Do you sometimes think of a number that they'll win by, and then add about 20 on just for the crack? I mean, seriously.
And then but then he comes in on the Monday and claims he got it right.
Just to annoy
I'm just hoping that I want to see some entertainment, some passing the ball. Well, you know what I mean?
The darts is on the other side, so
darts from Manchester this week.
Oh, there you go.
Yes.
Will John Gwynn be there with a log end board?
I think he will be there with a log end board. Yeah.
John.
Michael Van Gurney is playing. Michael Van Gurney is playing Daryl Gerwin. Right, what do you want to know? Well,
who's going to win?
I'd say the most likely outcome is that Wigan will win. I would give them something like about a 95% chance of winning that game, wouldn't you?
I don't think it'll be that cut and dried.
Well, that's just I'd say there's a 4% chance of a London win.
I think London need a response.
It's the only way I can express it.
1% chance of a draw.
Well, yeah, but they into extra time.
So you think Wigan by 95?
No. The 1895 results.
I think North Leeds.
Yeah, I think Wigan will win by 20.
I'm not sure they will, because I don't think Wigan have got a lot of points in them, but I also think that London play better away from home.
What's the long range weather forecast? How can you play better away from home?
But no, the results seem to be better.
They play
this
better on
season
grass rather
away
than
from
synthetic.
home. And I think they need a response from 3 difficult defeats over Easter. I think they'll be tough to break down.
Tips them to get beat by 10.
I'd be Wigan by 4.
Kevin's got for the Broncos by golden point. It'll be something like Wigan by 14 or something dull.
Yeah. You got Wigan by 4, though.
I have.
I think it'll be a lacklustre Wigan win, won't it? The Scully thinks it'll be a rout.
You know, we'll be told off now for not talking up the game
Right.
by saying this game's going to be rubbish and don't watch it and watch the darts. But let's elevate. Friday, should be interesting down at the Hose.
The Hose, yeah.
The Hose.
Yeah.
I stole that on Twitter yesterday. Apologies for that. Castleford Tigers
Be my guest.
versus Warrington Wolves.
Yeah, well, Castle need a response, don't they? It's not been pretty good over the last few weeks, to be honest with you. And Warrington, they've been all right, you would say. I would imagine Price would be around about 65% happy the way things are going, but I think he'll want a polished performance from Price on Friday night, and I think Warrington will get it, and I think Warrington will beat Cass on Friday night by 14.
It's all these percentages coming into this program.
It's all about percentages, Richard. Ask any punter. Right, well, I actually backed Warrington to win the grand final at the start of the season, but you know, when as a punter, when St Helens are playing, you just think they'll win this.
Yeah.
Don't you? You Saints against somebody, you just say Saints will win this. No problem. And you sit there relaxed with a nice glass of Sauvignon Blanc or something. The Saints will railroad these. But with Warrington, I don't think they're 100% reliable, are they? There's always a fear that they could make a mess of it, like they did against Salford, and they did against Huddersfield. There's a bit of like they're not quite as ruthless. No, you think they could get beat. Like a Wakefield was another example. Like they should have put the cleaners through it.
Yes.
And then suddenly you're thinking towards it. Well, they would have got beat if Danny Brother kicked the goals, wouldn't they? I mean, in a game that they almost lost an unlosable game there, didn't they? So I think they'll probably win, but I don't feel they're 100% reliable. I'm going to go Warrington to win by 6.
The Darrell Clark derby.
Yeah, trophy represented at the end of the match.
I think Warrington have refound their form after that. I think for them, soul-destroying defeat against St Helens because of the manner of it.
Well, they lost to Salford after that.
Yeah, so I think that was the hangover.
Would you? Right.
But I think they've got over that now.
Narrative there. Right.
And I do think that if Blake Austin maintains the form that he is currently showing, that he will be the difference between the teams. And I suspect Warrington will.
Hasn't really had the impact of their marquee signing from last season, Tyrone Roberts, has he really?
Who is playing very well at the moment for the Gold Coast, and just
right.
made their captain. So I'm going Warrington by 12.
Right. Okay.
One of my Blackpool players looks a bit like a cast player. Just noticed on the wearing one of their kits. Have they worn that shirt to celebrate the 101 years of the end of the war yet?
I've seen it in the stand. It's been as a replica.
Which is the classic. Have they got a Magic Weekend shirt? I don't know. People think I'm anti-cast now. No, I like cast. Warrington will win this game. I'm sure I had something amusing to say. Oh, Ryan Atkins, now he's leaving. He's going to miss out on his testimonial now because he's had 9 years at Warrington. Unless someone can fiddle it. Warrington by 12.
You can have a testimonial now for just being a good egg, can't you?
And a bad egg, apparently. Warrington by 12. Next up, this is the game everyone's looking forward to. I know I'll be tuning straight into my local radio station to get updates on this one. As Huddersfield Giants take on Wakefield Trinity. Dave Feater always scores tries at the John Smith Stadium.
Well, the Giants, they're not very good, are they, if I'm honest with you. Wakefield.
Well, good the other week.
Yeah. Wakefield, all right, they'll be again using that.
Got a lot of injuries, Wakefield.
Yeah, looking for a response with the defeat. Got a bit of time off now, so looking for a response. After the whole defeat, I just don't see anything with the Giants, if I'm honest with you. So I'm going for Wakefield to maintain it, keep themselves in that top 5. But I don't think there'll be much in it, so I'm going Wakefield by 7.
7. Oh, I've got your thing on there.
Well, actually, because Wakefield don't win any close games, but they did win a close game at home to Huddersfield, didn't
yes,
they?
And Leeds.
Yes,
yeah,
but they
don't win them.
They had to score very late against Huddersfield, didn't they? They were losing most of the game, weren't they, from memory serves me right. So. And that's I'm not sure about this game. It's a very tricky one. I don't like to make that better of an even. Would you make that an even game score if you want?
Yeah, it's not far off.
Yeah. I'm going to go for Huddersfield by 1 point.
I think
go for the 1 pointer.
I think Huddersfield's season is a little bit on the line with this game. Yeah. I think that it will go one of two ways. That if they were to lose this game,
right,
almost not going to make the top 5. If
Would
they
you be-
win
could
it,
they go down?
no,
No.
they could, but I don't think
No, you
they're the
don't think
worst.
they're bad,
I don't
right.
think they're the worst team
No,
in
I
the
don't
division.
either.
But I think if they win it, they're again on the coattails of that group that could end up finishing in the top 5.
Yes.
So I'm going to go for, like you, a narrow Huddersfield win by 4.
Well, I've got to go for it, haven't I? So that'll be exciting. I have no interest in this game whatsoever. I don't know if it's just
Well,
that time of
support one
the
of the
season.
They do
I know,
they do
but
play
it's
each other an awful
It's
lot,
got no
including,
interest in the
including
game
in
featuring the team that
pre-season.
you
Yeah, but
support.
Huddersfield is this kind of bizarre thing where they exist, but they've got the annoying people with the cowbell. And
Have you noticed that Warrington have banned the cowbell?
yeah, good on Warrington. Yeah, full support of Warrington up the Wolves.
the wire.
But I just
They play
just
too
don't care.
often.
I just don't care about Huddersfield. There's like the rival side, but I just can't get excited about this game. Wakefield by 2. It's
Sounds like it'd be an exciting match.
yeah. The
Another
all
close win
excitement.
for Wakefield.
The all excitement of the last 2 winners of the Coupe de Challenge, Hull FC,
Yeah.
take on the Catalans Dragons at the KCOM Stadium.
What do you think, Gary?
Well, the Catalans have stayed over, but
really?
it's still exciting anyway. To be honest.
We're not selling Rugby League here, are we?
I still,
We're not rebranding it, that's for
I
sure.
still don't think that'll make any difference to the away form. I think the black and whites, after good win against Wakefield, just making sure that they got the 2 points what they required after the Easter weekend. So I think the black and whites will win quite easy against Catalans. I'm going the black and whites by 16.
16.
The Steve McNamara derby.
Yeah, the trophy to be presented at the end of the match. I think Hull for me, surely. Home, yeah. Hull by 10 points.
Again,
Well, it could be anything, actually, couldn't it? I mean, they
I think
capitulated
this-
a few times away from home. I'll go 14, actually. I love it. I'll have 4.
Is this a game that defines
no,
Catalan
again,
season?
it does. It's a seminal game for
Why is
Catalan
it?
because I think they need to prove to themselves that they can win away from home. And
They already have one away from home. They won at London.
yeah, they can win away from home against teams that are around them in the league. And I think the fact that they have stayed over gives them no excuses whatsoever.
Why would they stay over? It's a long stay. that,
Cost
isn't it? It's going.
Bernard's largesse.
Where they're
What,
staying? I think it's anywhere nice.
Well, I mean,
exciting.
So I think they will pose a threat to Hull, but that
Where
was
have they gone up to Robin Hood's Bay or something for a holiday? I mean, seriously,
Yeah,
it's a long time to be away
They'll
from
be on
home.
the
isn't it?
lash. They'll be on the lash till Wednesday.
Red wine.
Will be 5 o'clock.
there'll be Michael McAloon will be taking him back to his place, and
Right.
showing him the delights of Wigan. I don't think it'll be a pushover. I think this will be a closer game. I'm going to say Catalan by 2.
I'm just going to go.
Otherwise, we're all going to agree with
What's been in
each
your?
other.
What's
Well,
been in
we're
your-
all going to
what's
agree
been
with
in
each
your
other with
cuppa?
every prediction, isn't
Mr.
it?
Kappa, what's been in your cuppa?
I'm just going to go for Hull.
Just gin.
Hull by 8. I like 8. 8 or 14. Go for Hull. We've still got 2 games left. Jeez. Also on Friday, they saved their worst performance of the season for Leeds when they were rubbish. It's
Well-
Salford versus Leeds, who are good now.
Yeah. Well, when I was the last on that's when Salford were playing Leeds last time. And I backed Leeds to beat them, if you remember, when everyone was fancying Salford.
Of course we don't remember
When
if we got it right.
Well, Leeds were having a bad run, weren't they? And,
Yes, it was
they
their
still
first
are having a bad
victory
run.
of
Yeah,
the
the first victory of the season. They won
Turn
easy,
around
didn't
then,
they?
turn
But they scored all those points when there was a sin binning, didn't they? They took full advantage of the sin binning because Salford were whinging about that. I'll go Leeds again. Go Leeds again.
Yeah.
By
Well, Salford, they forgot that defeat by Leeds, and it was embarrassing to be honest.
It was, wasn't it? Yeah.
Salford were going all right. Leeds, I think, was 3 on the bounce.
Yeah,
that's right,
To
yeah.
solve from there.
That's
So
right. Yeah.
it was a great performance. So I'm thinking Leeds will. I think Leeds will be thinking, yeah, we know what you're thinking, but we know we can beat you. So I'm going to follow Rhinos to beat Salford again. I'm not going to buy as many. But I'm going to Leeds to win by 10.
The Leeds have a very good record against Salford. Probably the best record against any team in Super League. I think they've only lost twice to them in all the times they've played them. Once at Salford and once at Headingley. Jansen Turgut in some kind of dispute with Ian Watson has been dropped. Leeds won 4 on the trot at home, but not been convincing away. Again, I think it's a season definer for Leeds. That if they are going to
Hell of a weekend, these
Well,
fixtures.
but if they are going to
Bear in mind
touch,
it's only the 14th game and there's
Yeah,
another
but
15 to
we're-
come
no,
after,
but
which are
we're-
going to be
but-
rendered irrelevant.
but we're halfway through the season, and I think if they are going to be one of those teams that hang on the coattails of the top 5, they have to win this game. So I'll go Leeds by 6.
Right.
I like
He'll
Leeds.
go for Salford.
There's a surprise.
I like Leeds. Oh no, I don't know where I'm going to go on this one.
Action Jackson Hastings.
Yeah.
Who's in fine form?
What's the Salford Leeds derby? Who's that named after?
David Young.
Yeah, cool.
Leeds by
Rob
2.
Ackerman.
Leeds by 2. And finally, on Sunday, Hull Kingston Rovers
Phil Ford.
versus St Helens in the John Wilkin derby.
Well, Hull Kingston Rovers journeymen, they're shot, they're rubbish, they're not doing anything. St Helens are on form. This again could be an embarrassing scoreline at home for Hull Kingston Rovers, and I don't think I'm being harsh on Hull Kingston Rovers, and I think the supporters realise that the squad is nowhere near good enough. I'm going St Helens easy, and St Helens have got the right attitude. They'll go there with professional performance. I'm going Saints by 32.
Jeez. Well, I mean, they've capitulated twice, haven't they? Hull Kingston Rovers over Easter. They capitulated at home. At Hull, didn't they? And then they capitulated at home to Warrington.
And in the first.
And
It's
they
all the
threatened
refs'
to
fault,
capitulate
apparently.
completely against
It's
Leeds.
all the refs' fault. They
Yeah,
lost those
and
games.
the refs' fault. Right, so this is the team. It's almost gone unnoticed, but they've now conceded more points than London, and they're playing the team that scored the most points.
Oh dear.
So, on the basis of that, I mean, look, it might be one of those games where it's not as big a rout as you expect. So, because it looks like an absolute hiding, doesn't it? I'll go Saints to win by 14. In the grounds that they might be a bit more competitive.
I'm with you on that. That I think just over this period of so many games, it doesn't matter who you are, there is a fatigue factor, and I think it's absolutely remarkable that Saints have maintained their quality and standard whilst also having anything up to 6 or 7 players out, most of whom are their top 9 players. I think Kane Lynette is an absolute standout for Hull KR at the moment. He was brilliant again yesterday, but I just don't think they've got enough players that can turn a game, and I think Tim Sheens has recognised that, and we talk about injuries, but if you've only got a small squad and you get injuries, it hurts more. So I'm with you. I think Saints will win, but perhaps not by the margin that people think, maybe 12.
Well, I'm going to use science because Robert's gone for Saints by 20 and Kevin's gone for Saints by 50. That's 70. Half that, 35. There you go, Saints by 35.
Danny Richardson drop goal.
Yeah, just a cheeky drop goal. Like Cass did yesterday. They were 10-0 up, had a drop goal, went 11-0 up.
As you would.
No one knows why. That's it. We are done. All the people complaining, they've gone off to watch the snooker or whatever else. Is on the Connect final tonight? They've all gone off to watch that. Thanks to Scoey. Thanks to Rod.
Thank you.
He's always entertained our audience, who are split 50-50 as ever. Thanks to Phil for looking after us. And we'll be back next Monday from 6, in which point we will be celebrating. When is the 1895 Cup draw next week?
Monday, I believe. It might be after
The Challenge Cup.
the Women's Challenge Cup. So we may know the draw by now.
We may do. They may tell us when it's going to be and everything. They might not.
Brilliant.
Super League doesn't like us, don't they?
I can't remember who doesn't like us. I think most people. If we go with everybody, then.
I felt I might be accredited for the Summer Bash. If not, I'm going to have a great weekend in Blackpool. Thanks for joining us. The podcast will be out later, and keep your eyes on social media for whatever is going on, because I don't know. Magazine's out soon.